Santan se juda threats she received over her prophet remarks. India's capital gets the chill. Cold wave conditions predicted to intensify. Temperature could drop to as low as -4 in parts of North India. Bomb scare on spice jets. Delhi-Pune flight at T3 airport. Police say nothing suspicious found so far. Security drill on as per protocol. Weeks after the Tawang clash, Army Chief speaks on the LAC status, says the situation on northern borders is stable but unpredictable. Consumer price inflation for the month of December eases to 5.72% versus 5.88% in the previous month. Industrial output jumps to 7.1%. India win the second ODI against Sri Lanka by 4 wickets, take an unassailable lead in the 3-match series after chasing down 216. But right at the very top, let's tell you the very latest on that crisis that's taking place in the Himalayan town of Joshimath, the holy town. Demolition process now beginning in Joshimath after, remember, cracks were found in several houses in the town in the Himalayas. Chief Minister Pushkar Singh Dhami is now to chair a cabinet meeting tomorrow in Uttarakhand. Remember, Joshimath in Uttarakhand has been at the epicenter of these cracks that you can see on your screen amidst concerns that power projects in the area have led to these cracks. Those cracks have widened, in fact, to other parts as well. Meanwhile, Home Minister Amit Shah has also held an emergency meeting on the situation in Joshimath, and a relief plan is being put in place. An expert panel being formed for risk assessment, and water discharge now being reduced by more than 50% to the area. 63 lakhs rupees have already been distributed to 42 families as interim relief, but questions still remain over the manner in which Joshimath's situation reached crisis point. That, in fact, is our ground report, because the demolition activities have begun. Rest and fury halted the demolition activities in the sinking town of Joshimath. Residents and owners of hotels in the area in tears during the demolition process. Our special report today comes from Joshimath, which is the sinking town.
पैरों तले जमीन खिसक रही है is a Hindi proverb often repeated here in Joshimath these days. The phrase that shows helplessness best describes the state of the people in this holy town. The land under their feet is literally sinking. In less than a fortnight, over 80 families have become homeless. Many buildings are marked already dangerous. The demolition exercise started on Thursday after people ended protests. No bulldozers are being used given the delicate nature of the task at hand. Hotel Malari Inn is the first on the list. Owners of the building marked unsafe are demanding fair compensation.
मैं यही बोल रहा हूँ ना, मौखिक कुछ भी नहीं है, हमें लिखित डॉक्यूमेंट चाहिए जिसके बेस पे आगे कार्रवाई करे, तभी हो पाएगा आगे. हम तैयार हैं, मतलब डिमोलिशन के लिए, मतलब हमें रिटर्न फॉर्म में चाहिए, बेसिस ऑन द वो बद्रीनाथ में जो फॉर्मूला लगा था उसके बेसिस पे कंपनसेशन के लिए.
Uttarakhand Chief Minister Pushkar Dhami has announced an immediate compensation of 1.5 lakh rupees to the affected families.
1.5 लाख रुपया केवल अभी अंतरिम रूप से जो अभी फौरी तौर पर अभी अपने को थोड़ा शिफ्ट करने के लिए या अपना कोई सामान खरीदना है तो उसके लिए था. बाकी तो अभी पुनर्वास होना है या इसमें सहायता होनी है, उसके लिए जो पहले भी आपदाएं यहाँ पर आई हैं, बड़ी बड़ी आपदाएं आई हैं, उसके समय में जो हमने नियम बनाए हैं या जो जिन नियमों के तहत सहायता राशि प्रदान की गई है उन्हीं में से करेंगे.
The weather in Joshimath is changing fast as the winter gets harsher. Many are making their way to shelters.
1-2 महीने से बिल्कुल स्थिति गंभीर हो गई और भूदशाओं के कारण ये जो मेन होटल है इसके कारण हमारे मकानों को बहुत क्षतिपूर्ण हो गया।
बुरी स्थिति है, आप ने देख लिया हो, बरामदे वगैरह पूरा मकान में दरार पड़ गई।
मकान तो पूरा खत्म हो गए। हम लोगों ने कहाँ जाना, कहाँ रहना है, बच्चों के लिए कहाँ जाना हम लोगों ने।
It's raining in Joshimath since yesterday, and that has changed this scenario for many of the residents like Yamuna Prasad. This particular room that you are seeing was in a way safe for the residents, but when in the morning the occupants of this house came to the house to check the situation, they realized there's a new crack in the pillar itself.
Over 700 houses have shown cracks on the walls. At least 130 families have been shifted out to safety.
2 दिन से बैठक चल रही है, उसके पहले बैठक चल रही है। अभी स्थिति हम क्या देख रहे हैं जोशीमठ में?
अभी एसडीआरएफ और पुलिस फोर्स और एनडीआरएफ की टीम जिन घरों में ज्यादा दरारें आई थी, जो घर रहने के लायक नहीं थे, उन घरों से उनको शिफ्टिंग में हेल्प किया जा रहा है और उनको सुरक्षित स्थानों पर ले जा रहे हैं।
Cracks are also being reported from areas like Karnaprayag, Rudraprayag, Pauri and Uttarkashi.
मकान के हालात बिल्कुल खत्म है, चाहे अंदर बोलो बाहर हो, कहीं भी देखो टूटा हुआ मिलेगा आपको।
कई परिवार प्रभावित हैं, घर बार उनको घर में रहना बड़ा मुश्किल हो गया।
State government officials have started inspecting land subsidence threat in other parts of Uttarakhand also. The fear is that the crisis could be bigger than what we imagine. Bureau Report, India Today.
So what lies ahead for Joshimath and indeed towns that are nestled in the Himalayan range? Joining me now is the country's leading environmentalist Sunita Narayan, Director General, Centre for Science and Environment. Appreciate your joining us, Sunita. As we play out those pictures today of Joshimath, the fears are rising that this is now spreading well beyond to other towns in the Himalayan region which have also developed cracks. What is your sense of the road ahead? What do you now believe needs to be done on an emergency basis?
Well, currently, of course, there's crisis management, and the state government will have to gear itself up to manage this huge human tragedy that is unfolding. It's a big question, how many people will be affected, what will be the compensation. Also, the big question is where will they be resettled, because it isn't as if the Himalayas has such, you have plains, lands in the plains where people can just be settled. So it's huge issue in front, huge human issue in front, and I'm sure the state government, state governments are normally good at crisis planning, Rajeep, so I'm sure they're going to get their act together. What concerns me more is what does this tragedy really tell us about planning in the Himalayas? And will it be the real wake-up call that will make us change? Or will it be one more such? 2 years ago, we had the Rishi Ganga episode. Again, we forgot about it. Business as usual. A few years ago, we had flash floods in Chamoli. And we really just don't seem to realize that people need to plan differently for a fragile region like the Himalayas and not make this into an unnecessary and a false narrative of environment versus development.
But Sunita, how do you plan differently? If you're saying it's a false narrative of pitting environment versus power projects, how do you then plan better? What is it that can be done now to ensure that we don't have more Joshimaths?
Good question, Rajdeep. I'll give you a real example. I was on a committee, a high-level committee in 2013 to look at the power projects that are coming up in the Himalayas. And I have real data, therefore, being part of the committee to share with you. 9,000 megawatts are being planned in the Himalayas, about 70 projects, and they're back-to-back. The engineers themselves tell you that these projects will affect the river to about 80%. It will leave the river, the projects will take up 90% of the water and will leave about 10% of the water in the lean water season. Now that's their plan. That's the development plan that they have put forward. Those are the projects that are coming up in the Himalayas today. The alternative plan that I put forward to the same committee was that, listen, we do need hydropower. Hydropower is a very clean, renewable source of power. It is also something that is an economic wealth of the Himalayas. But we need to make sure that we can mimic the flow of the river, which means that you would build your projects keeping in mind 50% of the flow will always be there in the river. You would generate less electricity during the lean season, more during the flood season. This meant, however, Rajeep, that the 9,000 megawatts would never happen if you took this formula. The revenue earning from the current projects would continue, but many projects, including the one that we are talking about today in Joshimath, would never take off. Now, this is not environment versus development. This is not to say hydropower will not happen. This is to say that you would plan appropriately for a fragile region like the Himalayas. Why should there be an argument against this? Why should this deteriorate into an environment versus development story?
So
that's the question I'm asking.
Let me get it what you're saying. You're saying that you need possibly fewer projects after complete assessment of risk, possibly smaller in scale. Is that the direction in which you are suggesting that one will have to go to save this eco-sensitive Himalayan belt?
We should have gone. I mean, frankly, this moratorium on projects was when the projects were at 4,000 megawatt. And so now, willy-nilly, all projects have happened saying, oh, but they were in construction stage. This is development. We need it. You need, I'm saying much more than what you have just said. I'm saying that you have to plan appropriately. The same thing comes for when you're doing buildings. The same thing comes when you're doing tourism. The same thing comes when you're doing roads. The Himalayas are the world's youngest, most fragile mountain range. They're not the Alps. They're not Sahyadris. They're not Aravallis. They are the Himalayas. And we have to plan keeping and knowing that these are mountains of moraine. These towns that are coming up today, people hate the word carrying capacity. They hate the word municipal planning, master planning. But take Nainital, take Shimla, take Joshimath, take any town. There is absolutely no master plan. There is no ability for the state to say this is where the buildings will come up. Then there is a question of appropriate architecture. Then there is a question about the seismicity. How would you build buildings for it? You would not build on the floodplains. The question I have is, why are we even discussing this today, Rajeep? We have so many institutions based in the Himalayas. You have IIT Roorkee, you have Wadia Institute. I can name 10 premier institutions. Where are the scientists of there to tell us why is state government not listening to the scientists, or are the scientists not speaking when they have to tell governments, plan differently? This is the Himalayas. This is not a parking lot of Greater Kailash.
This is not a parking zone of Greater Kailash in Delhi. These are the Himalayas. Therefore, in conclusion, you're saying what we need now is a master plan where you can bring all the states together of the Himalayas, get the top scientists together and create a plan not just for 10 years, but possibly for the next 50. Am I right?
And use science for planning and use engineers to understand that they cannot conquer nature forever. That's the big lesson from Joshimath.
Sunita Narayan, for those very strong words at the top tonight on a day when a town in the heart of the Himalayas has seen these kind of demolitions because it is sinking. I appreciate you joining us. Let's turn from there to the big political story, because it appears with every passing week, potential face-off between the Narendra Modi government and the higher judiciary is escalating. It's not just about appointment of judges, it's also about separation of powers. The Vice President of India, remember, yesterday suggested that the judiciary should not be reviewing laws passed by Parliament, essentially questioning the basic structure Keshwanand Bharti verdict of 1973 that bars the legislature from changing the basic structure of the constitution. The legal fraternity has now come out to slam Vice President Dhankar's controversial statements. But is the Modi government now spoiling for a fight with the judiciary? That's our top talking point.
The showdown between the executive and the judiciary worsens. The Vice President of India, in a fresh salvo at the Supreme Court, questioned the landmark 1973 judgment in the Keshwanand Bharti case. The 1973 verdict by the court bars Parliament from making amendments that change the basic structure of the Constitution. Dhankar said, in a democracy, the primacy and sovereignty of Parliament and legislature is inviolable. He then questioned the Supreme Court's decision to strike down the National Judicial Appointments Commission Act in 2015.
1973 में केशवानंद भारती के केस में सुप्रीम कोर्ट ने बेसिक स्ट्रक्चर का आइडिया किया कि पार्लियामेंट कॉन्स्टिट्यूशन अमेंड कर सकती है पर बेसिक स्ट्रक्चर को नहीं. विद ड्यू रेस्पेक्ट टू द जुडिशियरी, आई कैन नॉट सब्सक्राइब टू दिस. पार्लियामेंट ने कानून दिया, 16 असेंबलीज ने उसको रेटिफाई किया, महामहिम राष्ट्रपति ने अनुच्छेद 111 के तहत उसमें दस्तखत किए और उसके सामने एक सुप्रीम कोर्ट का निर्णय आ गया. कार्यपालिका के सामने दो मुद्दे, संसद द्वारा निर्मित कानून और सुप्रीम कोर्ट का निर्णय. सुप्रीम कोर्ट के निर्णय की तरफ कैसे झुक सकते हैं? हाउ कैन पार्लियामेंट sovereignty be compromised?
While Dhankar's views echo the Modi government's stand on the current system of appointment of judges in the Supreme Court and High Courts, his outburst against the basic structure doctrine is unprecedented.
There has been a concentrated series of statements against the judiciary. The judiciary now seems to be the new Nehru, a favorite whipping boy of politicians. The basic structure of the constitution has to remain intact, irrespective of whether the current government of the day approves of it or not.
So for the Vice President to say that this is, not correct, I don't understand what is the basis for him to say. Probably he has forgotten that he used to be a lawyer at some point of time, and he has, after taking the oath as the Vice President, has completely, sort of wiped out his earlier career.
Meanwhile, the Supreme Court Collegium, in a recent letter to the Union Law Ministry, has reminded the centre about its obligations once again. While recommending an advocate's name for the third time to be appointed as a judge of the Karnataka High Court, the Collegium has said any name that has been reiterated by the Collegium has to be appointed by the government.
There seems to be no end visible on the horizon for this long-standing tussle between the Collegium and the Centre over the issue of appointment of judges, where on one hand, the Centre and high constitutional authorities like the Vice President have time and again spoken about the supremacy of the Parliament and how the judiciary cannot undermine the will of the people. The Supreme Court, on the other hand, through its judgments and its recent statements, has made it very clear that it is not the Parliament, rather the Constitution, that reigns supreme in India. The question is, will there be a new twist to this saga now, with the Vice President unveiling this fresh attack, questioning the landmark 1973 judgment of Keshwanand Bharti that had put in place the basic structure of the Constitution. With Kanu Sarda and Shrishti Ojha in New Delhi, this is Nalini Sharma for India Today.
The big question then, is the Modi government simply now spoiling for a fight with the judiciary? Is judicial review of laws a must, or is it also resulting in judicial overreach? Is constitution paramount, or is parliament paramount in this country? The constitutional questions. Siddharth Luthra, former Additional Solicitor General, joining me. Another former Additional Solicitor General, Bishwajit Bhattacharya, with me. Ami Yagnik, Congress MP and lawyer, and Vivek Subba Reddy, BJP leader and lawyer with us. I'll come to the politicians in a moment, but I just want to get the two legal eagles to give us their perspective. You first, Siddharth Luthra. Do you believe that we need to relook at the basic structure doctrine, that Parliament is sovereign, as Jagdeep Dhankar says, and therefore the basic structure doctrine needs to be reviewed, relooked at?
I think I would put it another way. Fundamental rights chapter is part of the basic structure. Amongst others, would you or I want the fundamental rights chapter to be diluted? The answer is obviously no. So let's understand one thing, and this is a matter of some concern. The Vice President, an erudite lawyer of his time, like all other constitutional authorities, took an oath to uphold the Constitution and the laws. The law declared by the Supreme Court in the Keshwananda Bharati case is the law of the land, which every authority has to uphold. The Constitution recognizes that there is separation of powers. The role of the courts is to ensure that executive and legislative power is reviewed. That's the power of judicial review, and kept in check. And part of the checks is that there should be no breach of the basic structure, as pronounced in the Keshwananda Bharati case. Having said that, we must not forget that the basic structure has helped us in times of crisis in ensuring that the Constitution is not revoked. Otherwise, I mean, if the basic structure didn't exist, you'd come along and, like some of our neighboring countries, the Constitution would be revoked on a regular basis. That is the whole purpose of this doctrine. I must also add that in our democracy, when we gave ourselves this Constitution, the Constitution provided separate roles for the legislature, for the executive, and for the judiciary. Those roles are cast under the Constitution. And today, to question that, to question the basic structure, is really questioning the basis on which this republic was founded. A lot of thought went into giving ourselves this Constitution, and it is unfortunate that this is now being questioned by no less than authority than the Vice President himself, as I said, a competent lawyer.
You're saying that the Constitution envisaged a clear separation of powers, but Biswajit Bhattacharya, the argument that the political class is making, and we'll come to them in a moment, is that there are times when the judiciary appears to be taking over tasks that should be left to the legislature. So Parliament is sovereign, is what Jagdeep Dhankar is saying, and therefore believes that we must review the basic structure doctrine, because it expands the power of the judiciary, can lead to judicial overreach, and judicial oversight is leading to overreach in the case of Parliament.
Rajdeep, the fundamental concept of these two highest constitutional authorities, which they have uttered, is deeply flawed. Perhaps they didn't have the time to go through Article 245 of the Constitution of India.
Let's be specific. Why do you believe that Jagdeep Dhankar is out of line?
Because it flies on the face of Article 245. Parliament's lawmaking power is circumscribed by the provisions of the Constitution. The interpretation of the Constitution is the job of the judiciary. And in the Njak case, the government has lost once, twice when the review petition was dismissed. And now, from 2015, to rake up the issue while holding high constitutional posts, and not before that, and in unison by the two highest authorities within the top five. I think this is total reckless disregard of Article 144 of the Constitution.
No, but there are
reckless disregard of Article 141 of the Constitution, and basically, it is the job of the judiciary to interpret the Constitution. Even a first-year law student will know.
But
how
does the appointment of... You see, I think where this has come from is that entire NJSC judgment of 2015 of the National Judicial Appointments Commission judgment which the judiciary refused to accept, saying it would be a violation of basic structure. You've got the likes of Mr. Dhankar saying that how can judicial appointments be part of the basic structure? Why should judges have primacy?
No, you see, the basic structure is a proposition laid down by a 13-judge bench of the Constitution from 24th of April 1973 till today. Half a century we are going to complete on 24th of April. So that's the law of the land. Now, if you have to challenge that, you have to set up a 15-judge bench. And for the high constitutional authority to talk in this manner is very, very unfortunate. And I think this is tarnishing the image of India. The highest constitutional authorities are openly attacking the majesty and sanctity of the Supreme Court. They have not gone through Article 245, Article 141, Article 144.
Let me bring in Mr. Reddy. I'll come back to you, Vishwajit, in a moment. Mr. Reddy, No, it is time to call a spade a spade. Now, don't be afraid. You are one of the few channels. So therefore, don't be afraid. Hear me. The question is that when constitutional authorities, after occupying highest constitutional post, they themselves attack the Constitution, whose creature they are, to say that Parliament is sovereign. I'm sorry, Parliament is not sovereign. Nobody is sovereign. Constitution is sovereign. Okay,
and
that's the line of the day. The Constitution is sovereign, Parliament is not sovereign. I'll come to you, Siddharth, in a moment. Just a minute, sir.
Power of the judiciary to interpret.
You made very strong comments. I think it's only fair.
Parliament cannot interpret the Constitution.
Okay, let Mr. Reddy respond. Mr. Reddy, Constitution is supreme, not the Parliament. If the Parliament commits excesses, as happened during the Indira years leading to emergency, it is the job of the judiciary to act. The Keshwanand Bharti case has stood for 4-5 decades now. Why this sudden need to review it?
No, you can review it, but set up a larger bench.
Okay, let Mr. Reddy respond.
Well, Rajeep, what the Vice President has said has set off a debate on the Keshavananda Bharati judgment. I think debates are welcome, even if it is from high constitutional authorities. They have a right to speak. They have a right to say what the law should be, how the Constitution should be interpreted. After all, the two senior counsels who are on record here, the basic structure doctrine was never prescribed in any part of the Constitution. The Constitution never said that this is the basic part of the Constitution, this is the non-basic part of the Constitution. There was no basic structure theory at all in the Constitution. But the judges divined it, they interpreted it. I am not saying that they are wrong. They have
what has
interpreted
suddenly
it. It's
changed?
a larger bench judgment
Mr. Reddy,
of the
what has
Supreme Court.
suddenly
It
changed?
has its sanctity.
What has suddenly changed? What has suddenly changed for calling for a review of the basic structure judgment?
We need to understand the Vice President's perspective. The Vice President was talking about the NJAC Act. The Vice President was talking about the NJAC Act. The NJAC Act in 2015 was scrapped, was quashed by the Supreme Court, holding it unconstitutional on the ground that it vitiates one basic principle of the Constitution, which is independence of the judiciary. That's the core controversy. So the Vice President was asking that if Parliament cannot make a legislation on appointment of judges, the system of judges appointing themselves, is this right? Is this constitutional? Well, I think he has a point there. Judges appointing judges, and we have seen that the collegium system is not foolproof, though it is good, but it is not foolproof. It is not sacrosanct to say that it has crossed all hurdles or all deficiencies.
Okay, so
today we find that judges are also looking at or eyeing certain relatives of judges who have been appointed. So this sort of a subtle favoritism, if at all it is there, I think that is also serious. And we have a right to question this. That is not constitutional. That is not a part of the Constitution. In fact, it violates the basic feature if such things exist. Therefore,
I would request
he is right in raising these issues.
You believe it's important to trigger off a debate. Ami Yagnik, your response, because the Congress party is already suggesting that this is part of some larger conspiracy to undermine the judiciary and judicial independence?
See, first of all, Rajeep, this statement which has come from the Honorable Vice President of India, I think it is unprecedented. And in fact, as a law student and a practitioner of law, and having immense faith in the judiciary and a law that has been 50 years down the years, you know, with 1973, Keshwanand Bharti, that the basic structure of the constitution cannot be altered. I think it was very this statement coming from the highest constitutional authority, the Honorable Vice President of India. This is a statement which is, I think, it is attacking the constitution, because the constitution is supreme. Parliament makes laws, the judiciary interprets it, and if it contravenes the basic structure of the constitution, it is thrashed down. It is practically given a go by. So what is wrong in that if the judiciary protects the constitution?
Vivek Reddy is saying that there is a particular context of judges appointing their own.
The question of saying that Parliament is supreme.
Vivek Reddy is saying that in the context of the manner in which judges are appointed, should Parliament be supreme or should judges? Are we saying that this is frozen in time? Nothing is frozen in time. You can review aspects of the constitution.
No, Rajeep, I think, Rajeep, there is a system in place, and for so many years and decades, there has been this system, and the government is also a party in this when the recommendations come. But if there are certain deficiencies, you can try to figure them out and solve them. But just to say that Parliament is supreme,
but where are the checks and balances?
Everyone is surprised.
Like in any other administrative decision.
The Constitution is supreme.
Oh, both of all the panelists who are questioning
Rajeep, where are the checks and balances? The judiciary appoints itself.
Okay, Siddharth Luthra, you want to respond?
The judiciary appoints its own judges. Where are the checks and balances?
Siddharth Luthra, Mr. Reddy is saying, where are the checks and balances? If judges appoint their own, does the legislature have a say or not? That's what the Vice President was effectively alluding to.
I think first the golden words which slipped out from Mr. Reddy, that the collegium system is good, we need to cast that in stone. The second most important thing is, you lost the NJAC decision. What stopped you from bringing an amendment which would have dealt with the concerns the Supreme Court had stated in the NJAC decision? If you believe in the Constitution, if you believe in democracy, please bring an amendment to the Constitution. You are entitled to do it. You're the party in power, and you can place it before Parliament. Get it passed through Parliament. If necessary, it will be tested in court. If it is good, it may not even be tested. But is this the way that our debate is going to go on, where we decide to we have these conversations, these pronouncements in public fora? There is a mechanism to amend the Constitution. If you choose not to do it, then the question is, do you believe in the Constitution as you are bound to do? And that is the question that needs to be asked today. It's a matter of serious concern. Number 3, let's be very clear. In India, the Constitution is supreme. We are not like the United Kingdom where Parliament is supreme. We have a written Constitution that divides the powers. Yes, there has been a graying of areas, but merely because you lost the NJAC judgment, it's not a case of Angur Khatte the.
No, where are the checks? Siddharth Luthra,
if you believe in it.
Luthra, where are the checks and balances? The point Mr. Reddy is making, where are the checks and balances? If there is judicial overreach, who
I'll tell you the checks and balances.
Checks and balances
I'll tell you, the checks and balances are very clear. Every time a recommendation goes of an appointment of a judge, it goes to the government vets it, there are security clearances done, and the government comes back with its observations and its comments to the Supreme Court. The Supreme Court or the Collegium in the High Court then looks at those objections, sees those concerns, and either reiterates the name or drops the name. Please let them come out with numbers where legitimate concerns have been raised by the government, and the Supreme Court Collegium or the High Court Collegium has declined to accept them. Let's talk numbers and statistics. Let's not talk in the air on perception.
No, that is the situation.
That
is the situation.
No, 1 minute, Mr. Reddy. The fact is, this government in the last year or last few years has been sitting on various recommendations made by the Supreme Court Collegium, sending them back, at times refusing to accept it. You had a 2-year hiatus as a result where no appointments were made. So clearly this, and you've got the law minister of the country, Vivek Reddy, who's openly saying we want to discard this system, who's openly in a way challenging the judiciary. Is this the way to conduct a debate is the question. If the Modi government's spoiling for a fight, that the Modi government seems to want to have a fight with the judiciary.
Rajeep, it is not confrontationist, neither is it an attempt to create a rift or a rupture between constitutional bodies. But the issue is that there has to be a healthy debate. The government is pointing out, the Law Minister and Jagdeep Dhankar, the Honorable Vice President, both of them are pointing out certain serious concerns in this whole system.
Take it to Parliament, sir.
Now, if there are certain recommendations, as one of our panelists said, if there are certain recommendations which are not worth it or which cannot pass the muster, and it is still reiterated by the Supreme Court, then what must the government do? Where is the check and balance? So these are the concerns.
You've said that for the second. You've said that for the second time.
I disagree with Mr. Luthra when he says that you can't have a public debate. You can't have a, what do you mean?
About
this is an institution.
Let them give those numbers
like any
one by one, please. Okay, let me.
To be thrown off the
okay, Mr. Luthra, just a minute. Vishwajit Bhattacharya, you want to take that again and again. Vivek Reddy is saying checks and balances are needed. The judiciary cannot arrogate for itself the right to choose its judges. If the government believes that there are some elements of that the system isn't working, they have every right to voice their concerns.
Rajdeep, the basic question here is checks and balances exist already in the system. There is a process, as Mr. Luthra has pointed out, various channels are there to keep checks and balances. There is an impeachment procedure also for an errant judge. But today is 12th January. Recall what happens 5 years back. Today, on Swami Vivekananda's birthday.
In the history of India.
Vivek Reddy, 1 minute, let him complete.
4 judges, Rajdeep, 4 judges today, 5 years back, revolted. Why did they revolt? Why did they revolt? There was an attempt to control the judiciary. So this is a turf war, and judiciary cannot afford to lose this. So this is an orchestrated turf war going on, because today Article 144 says all authorities, judicial and civil,
this is a way to cover up the deficiencies in the system.
Article 141.
The government is pointing out the deficiencies.
Article 141.
Okay, Vishwajit, you've had your word. Vishwajit, you've made that point.
It is not an attempt to cobble the judiciary. I am sorry.
No,
it is not an attempt to cobble the judiciary or to take a grip over the judiciary. It is a healthy discussion, a debate on the deficiencies in the system.
India's international image is going down.
Okay, you know what? The fact at the moment...
I am sorry, Mr. Bhattacharya. I am sorry.
No,
that is not the tenor.
No, Vivek Reddy, is it not...
No, 1 minute. Government's argument. It's a healthy argument on deficiencies.
No, Vivek Reddy, does it behove the law minister of the country no less and the vice president no less to openly take on the judiciary in this manner in public? Do you believe, will this not be seen as an attempt to undermine the independence of the judiciary? Is this the manner in which, it's the manner in which, no one says there shouldn't be a debate. But if you are going to conduct this debate in a confrontational manner, what's the message that's going out? That you expect the judiciary to toe the line of the government?
Well, see, Rajdeep, so far as the issues raised by Jagdeep Dhankar, the Honorable Vice President, on the doctrine that has been existing since 50 years, there's nothing wrong in having a healthy review about it, or a discussion about it, or a debate about it. And the Law Minister also has pointed out certain deficiencies. Perhaps he has seen certain things which he feels must be orchestrated in the light of the judiciary having the sole power. Now, the sole repository of the power is judiciary. You don't want political interference, I agree.
No, but why don't you? Why is this debate? Why does this debate not take place in Parliament? You know, is the opposition open to a debate on this in Parliament? Ami Yagnik? Should this debate not take place inside Parliament, a reasoned, rational debate? That's where the debate should take place, Ami Yagnik.
No individual, president or vice president or prime minister, can alter a 13-judge bench. There is a rule of law. There is a procedure in the country.
No, they are not altering it.
Just by
They are not
attacking the
altering it.
judges.
They are suggesting, suggesting a healthy discussion.
Can I ask Ami
What is wrong in a healthy discussion?
Is Ami Yagnik, is the opposition ready for a healthy discussion on this? Yes or no?
Yes, of course, Rajeep, we have been always asking for a healthy debate. Parliament is meant for discussion, debate and deliberations. And that is how we get a wholesome law, which is not subject to being attacked or being taken to the Supreme Court. And we are always ready for healthy discussions. Okay. But you have seen what has happened. The bills are bulldozed and hardly there is any hearing on the bills and a detailed deliberation takes place. So we are ready for, always we are ready for a healthy discussion on any bill that is brought in the Parliament.
Okay, so effectively the real question is, and I think we accept that the Constitution is supreme, and really we need to go back in a way to the Constitution and look at the manner in which the Constitution can be protected from any attempt at overreach by any institution. We have a fine Constitution. It's the manner at times which it is interpreted and used which is under question. I appreciate...
And interpreted by the court.
You're saying interpreted by the court? Point well taken.
Not the Parliament.
Your point is well taken, Mr. Bhattacharya, but I've run out of time. Let's take a break because I've got another issue that I want to raise. Our Get Real India story. Why is it that patients with rare diseases are not getting the government funds they were promised? We'll tell you these stories on the other side. You're watching the news today.
You're watching an India Today special broadcast being brought to you from the stunning ski resort of Klosters, Davos.
The 53rd World Economic Forum is back at the snow-clad slopes of Davos. The smartest minds gather to debate the world's biggest challenges: energy crisis, industry headwinds, geopolitical risks, social vulnerabilities. India Today and Business Today are at ground zero to bring you all the action. Catch top corporate tycoons, politicians and intellectuals as they discuss cooperation in a fragmented world. Watch the Davos brainstorm only on India Today and Business Today TV.
To tonight's Get Real India story. Now, in this country, many a time policies are made, but they remain on paper. The National Policy on Rare Diseases is one such instance. Over 400 patients registered for treatment of rare diseases under the policy that promised funds, but not one of them have got financial assistance since. Tonight's India Today special report comes from Milan Sharma.
They named their home after him. In 2009, Vihan was born as a normal child. In his 7th month, his life changed. Vihan was diagnosed with Hunter syndrome or MPS II, a very rare genetic disorder that progresses with age. He never walked or talked, he only smiled. Vihan died at the age of 13 in May 2022, waiting for medical assistance that Neha and Mayank could not afford.
I don't want to say this, but our India is very weak in medical system, especially in case of rare kids. As these disorders, they don't consider at all. Government can help us, and surely they can. If they can raise some funds or they can actually look after this policy, they can help the kids to achieve a normal and a better life.
10-year-old Lakshya has been almost in vegetative state for 3 years now. An active kid until 2017, he can't even sit without help anymore. Lakshya's parents, Bharat and Asha, are worried how long he will survive.
डॉक्टर्स ने हमें बताया कि आप ट्रीटमेंट बहुत कॉस्टली है इसका, तो फिर हमने पूछा क्या कॉस्ट है, तो उन्होंने फिर हमें बताया कि करीब 1 करोड़ के आसपास इसकी कॉस्ट आती है ट्रीटमेंट की। बट हमारे इतना हम है नहीं कि इतना अफोर्ड कर सकें, इतना पैसा। हम मिडिल क्लास फैमिली से हैं, इतना पैसा हम अफोर्ड नहीं कर सकते। और बॉडी भी इसकी ख़राब होती जा रही है। पहले हाथ पैर भी चला लेता था, अब इसका जैसे छोड़ दो तो वैसे के वैसे ही पड़ा ही रहता है। करवट भी नहीं ले पाता अपने आप से खुद।
The family is praying for some miracle. The Union Health Ministry framed a national policy for rare diseases in March 2021. It was to give patients of rare disorders financial help of up to 50 lakh rupees for treatment. However, of the 432 patients registered for rare disorders treatment, not a single one has received funds yet.
They don't have that funds. They are not actually making those funds to release. Like per vial, in this case, there are injectables per vial which are so costly, so expensive, and that will increase according to the age, according to the weight, and for a family, for I would say middle family or a high class family, that doesn't matter, but we can't afford anyone.
BJP MP Varun Gandhi has raised the issue. The MP, in a letter to Health Minister Mansukh Mandavia on January 7, says that according to Health Ministry's crowdfunding platform, 208 patients can be put on therapy immediately. But he adds that 10 centers of excellence set up under the policy are yet to seek funds for even a single case. Most of these diseases are diagnosed in specialty hospitals, and the treatment in India available for some is extremely expensive.
Vihan is perhaps just one of those children who has lost his life. The family prays that no other family should see the kind of torment that they have been through. But this is a classic case of policies being made on paper and never implemented. We have reached out to the Union Health Ministry for a statement as well. But every minute lost is a life lost for a child who is waiting for financial assistance for the treatment of rare disease disorders in the country. With Pawan Kumar in New Delhi, Milan Sharma for India Today.
Joining me now is Saurabh Singh. He's Director, Rare Diseases India Foundation. Neha Mitra is a parent who lost her child. Neha, to you first. Today, first of all, condolences. Do you feel anger that this policy has not been implemented? Do you believe your child would have been saved if a policy wasn't properly implemented?
Hello? Yeah, definitely, Rajeep. I believe so. If this policy has been implemented properly at a time, then definitely I won't lose my kid. At least he would be in a better condition today.
Did you attempt to get funds? Did you attempt, Neha, to get funds? And what response did you get?
Yes. Rajeep, what happened? I made my son into the trial runs. Which were conducted by many of the medical companies outside India. They were making a trial run in India for the same. At that time, my son's age was 6 years. And unfortunately, the criteria of that medicine is early intervention. Below 3 years, they can consider a child for a trial run. And unfortunately, it didn't happen. Although I made all the tests which were under that form that need to be done. I made all the attempts, but I wasn't successful. And then I got to know that these policies we are amending, we are pleading to our government, central government, our health ministries, that they can look out to these kids. They're also hope,
Can I, Saurabh Singh?
They're also a ray of hope in our country if
Saurabh Singh, is part of the problem just the heavy costs involved in these rare diseases? Because the costs are so high, funding is difficult.
Yes, sir.
Yes.
Saurabh?
Thank you, Rajeep, for calling me Yes, I can hear you. Thank you, first of all, Rajeep, for inviting me for this.
Yeah, go ahead.
Yeah. As we know that before 2021 there was no such policy for rare disease patients. First it was came in 2017. After some time it was kept in abeyance, and it was reframed in 2021, and now it is amended in 2021. So in this new existing policy, there is a provision of 50 lakhs rupees only. And these rare diseases are categorized in 3 parts. And for all the rare disease patients, 50 lakhs rupees is not sufficient, because there are patients who needs lifetime therapy and the cost is very high. These 3 groups, for group 1, 50 lakhs is sufficient. For group 2, 50 lakhs may be sufficient. But for group 3, 50 lakhs is not sufficient, because those patients need lifetime support. So this is the issue with this policy,
right?
And
so you're saying the funding needs to increase, but let me ask you: is the funding being provided or not? Are the funds being provided? Our story suggests the funds are not being provided. Also, even the 50 lakhs are not being provided.
Yeah, Rajeep, exactly. You are right. There is no patient benefited out of this policy till date, because nowadays what happens, there are 10 Center of Excellence hospitals there in India, including AIIMS New Delhi. And what is the policy says that first of all, Center of Excellence will give recommendation to the Ministry of Health and Family Welfare to release the fund for these patients. But unfortunately, Center of Excellence has not yet given a recommendation for any of the patients, because they feel that in 50 lakhs rupees for treatment for group 3 patients are not okay.
Okay, so I want to get Neha. Right, so you need a system where you're going to have to increase the amount payable and create a way where those with rare diseases get. Neha, you have a final word. You want to say something to the policy makers as a parent who lost her child. What would you want to tell the government?
Yeah, Rajeep, definitely I would want to raise this issue. I lost my son, but I really don't want any other parent that they would regret that they don't have a policy in India, or they can't afford. It's too expensive, as all of us know, as Saurabh has bring it to you also. But it's my request to our ministry, please help these children. Please look after this policy. You need to see what is going on. You are just speaking, you are just giving the words. No actions are there.
Okay. I want to leave it there.
It's time to take action.
I want to leave it there.
Crowdfunding
lot of talk, not enough action. We've highlighted this story in the hope that someone there is listening and will act on this. I appreciate my guests joining me. Let's turn, though, as we end tonight, to a good news today story. Because the World Cup hockey is here. Forget cricket for the next fortnight. India has the World Cup hockey going on in Odisha. And India opens its first match tomorrow against Spain. It's going to be a memorable occasion for Neelam Sanjeev case. Neelam comes from a village in the same district of Odisha where the match is being held. His house is made of mud, did not even have electricity till a few years ago. His is a remarkable story of willpower. It's our good news today's story. Good night, goodbye, Jai Hind, Namaskar. May India win the Hockey World Cup. Bye for now.
This is a house of a hockey star. Till not so long ago, this house did not have electricity or water connection. Neelam Sanjeev says from Kadobahal village in Sundargarh, Odisha is a defender in the Indian team that takes the field on Friday in the World Cup.
It's a third bite at the chip.
The journey from Kadobahal to the hockey field was not an easy one. As a kid, sent to graze goats, he would run away to play hockey with friends. Neelam's parents, though not happy with his obsession with hockey, bought him his first hockey stick. Today, Bipin and Jeera are proud of their son's achievements.
बढ़िया खुश लगा थे बेटा खेल के जाते जन
तो पढ़ा लिखा यहाँ कैसन का हो रहे होकर
पढ़ला कोनो लिखे का करबे आगे तो पैसा पतरा के गोरगोरा रही लेकिन कोनो लिखे भगवान के दुआ से पढ़ला बढ़िया लगा थे तो जो सबके तो खुश लगा थे हमके हो बेस लगा थे खेल के जाते बेटा गटन
Medals and trophies won by Neelam are priceless treasures for his parents. They have kept prizes safely under lock in a trunk.
इंडिया टीम के खेल से बहुत खुशी और गर्वित अच्छे देश बहुत देश लोक मान भी बहुत गर्वित अछंती
Neelam made his debut for the senior team in 2016 South Asian Games. The match against Spain in Raurkela will be his first in a World Cup. Bureau Report, India Today.
Powered by Samsonite. Tested like Samsonite. Volkswagen Tiguan, India's safest SUVW. LIC, हर पल आपके साथ. Tata Punch, vibes with you.
Amidst third winter of Ladakh standoff, as world's two biggest armies deepen positions, Indian Army Chief's big statement.
I would say the situation is stable and under control, yet unpredictable.
But what does unpredictable mean? Who has the upper hand in Ladakh? Where's the end to this standoff? Top focus on India first.
A very important statement by the Indian Army Chief calling the situation on the northern borders in Ladakh stable but unpredictable as the Indian Army goes through its third winter on the line of actual control in eastern Ladakh of the standoff between the world's two largest armies. The big question every Indian asks is, what is the current situation? When will full disengagement happen? And when will this standoff come to an end? I'm going to try and answer some of those questions on this super special broadcast because we have a live ground report coming in from eastern Ladakh as well. I'm Shiv Arur. These are the headlines. Prime Minister Modi's big youth outreach in Hubli, Karnataka. Prime Minister pays tribute to Kannada legends, says runway is ready for young Indians to take off.
The runway is ready. The runway is ready for your takeoff.
Demolition begins of one of the two hotels that were marked unsafe in Uttarakhand's Joshimath. It has begun. Bulldozers brought in. Emotional locals leave their homes as more cracks are discovered in nearby towns. Suspended BJP Neta Nupur Sharma gets a gun license. This after several Sartan se juda threats she received over her prophet remark last year. Bomb scare on SpiceJet's Delhi-Pune flight at Delhi's T3 airport. Police say nothing suspicious has been found so far. Security drill as per protocol. India's capital gets the chills. Cold wave conditions predicted to intensify. Temperatures could drop to as low as -4 in North India, according to some estimates. Very soon, it'll be 3 years since the two largest armies in the world began a huge face-off, a standoff in eastern Ladakh. Obviously, the provocator was China. They're the ones who moved in and massed their forces across the border in eastern Ladakh. But the fact is, things have become a new normal there. And on Thursday, the Indian Army chief made a deep statement. He said the situation there is stable but unpredictable. Take a look at this report.
Very soon it will be 3 years since the Ladakh standoff began. 3 years of a deadlock with the world's two largest armies, massed against each other over freezing frontier. As thousands of troops withstand the third winter in the wasteland that spans the line of actual control. The Indian Army chief on Thursday provided a crucial update.
I would say the situation is stable and under control, yet unpredictable.
Unpredictable, a word that fully captures how India perceives Chinese intentions. A country that has shown keenness to talk and disengage, but still escalating at whim across sectors. Not to mention, zero indications of China de-induct the huge troop and weapon deployments across the LAC since nearly 2020. Speaking at his annual press conference ahead of Army Day on January 15th, the Army chief also addressed a critical issue pertaining to preparedness.
You are aware of the talks, ongoing talks, wherein we have been able to resolve 5 out of the 7 issues that were on the table. And we are continuing to talk both at the diplomatic as well as the military level. In terms of our preparedness levels, they remain of a very high standard. We have adequate forces, we have adequate reserves in each of our sectors to be able to effectively deal with any situation or contingency.
The Indian Army has more than matched Chinese strength in eastern Ladakh. But the reality remains a troubling one. China is at India's doorstep, not the other way around. With disengagements and troop pullbacks affected in most friction points, the long, slow burn tensions in the vast Depsang Plains and Demchok remain unresolved and therefore potential flashpoints. Away from the Ladakh situation, the Army chief also provided this update on the northeast.
In the northeast, the peace has returned in most of the states. And you are also aware of the denotification of disturbed areas in Assam, in Manipur and Nagaland.
While the Army chief was speaking of internal insurgencies and violence, the external threat remains, with Indian and Chinese troops clashing regularly like these undated clashes from late 2021 or early 2022, and then again in December last year in Arunachal's Tawang sector. As another winter passes, the bottom line remains that the Indian Army remains ready and deployed for all eventualities. Bureau Report, India Today.
India Today's Shweta Singh is in Ladakh today. She happens to be in eastern Ladakh, one of the few journalists with access to the front lines, and she's reporting on army preparedness in the third winter. Shweta, thanks very much for joining me from Ladakh. The army chief's big pronouncement today, I'm sure you heard about it as we reported it, Shweta, on peace along the borders. He said it is stable, but it is unpredictable. What is the sense that you're getting from there? Because you heard those words from the army chief while you're right there. He's talking about where you are.
Well, Shiv, history proves that the Indian Army has never been the aggressor, but whenever there's been a betrayal at the border, we've always learned from our mistakes. When Pakistan did what it did at Siachen, we've never vacated those high posts. We've always been there throughout the year in those circumstances. When 1999 Kargil happened, ever since we've never vacated the winter posts. We've always been there through the year. Similarly, when Galwan happened, the Indian Army has never let its guard down across the line of actual control from Ladakh till Arunachal Pradesh. Our soldiers are there preempting any move by the Chinese on their side, and there have been plenty. So when the army chief says that the situation is stable, it is there is nothing to worry about there, but it is still unpredictable. It means that we are not taking the Chinese lightly. We are actually watching their every move.
Very true. You know, and Shweta, as the military level talks continue, between the Indian and the Chinese side, I think 13 rounds of talks, if I'm not mistaken, have already taken place. What about the ground situation? The sense you're getting from speaking to the army on the ground with the 14 Corps, is there adequate force deployment from the Indian side along the line of actual control?
So everyone is aware that the talks are ongoing, and India has never actually stopped relying on talks to solve whatever has happened at the line of actual control. And when the foreign minister spoke to us, you would remember he had said that we are able to talk on equal terms because of what the Indian Army is doing at the borders. So the Army Chief has said that out of the 7 issues, 5 have been resolved. So that is a positive movement, though we can believe that there is more of a stagnation and things seem to be moving very slow, but that is what China is all about. Now, coming to the deployment, I'm standing here in Ladakh, and the deployment here since Galwan has been a mirror deployment, and we've been saying that all through. So keeping the deployment in Ladakh, specifically eastern Ladakh, completely consistent to what it was.
Huge deployments there by the Indian Army. They could grow even further during this winter. Shweta reports at a time when the third winter has gone by. Remember, with the passage of time, it becomes the new normal, and that's not a good thing. And that is reflected in what the Army Chief said today about things being stable. That's no fighting happening, but it's unpredictable as to which way things could go from here. Shweta, stay safe. Thank you very much for that live report for us here in Ladakh. Just a month after the Tawang clash in Arunachal Pradesh, Army Chief General Manoj Pandey has clearly said that the situation is stable, but it remains unpredictable. And I want to repeat that because there is a great deal of meaning in his choice of words. But how unpredictable is China this time around? Here's a quick situation report. India Today's Ankit Kumar has compared, judged and assessed the growth of Chinese deployments across the line of actual control in eastern Ladakh to paint a pretty clear picture, probably the clearest picture you're ever going to see of just what China has done, even while talking about disengagement.
Weeks after the Tawang clash in Arunachal Pradesh, Army Chief General Manoj Pandey said that the situation along the India-China border is stable, but unpredictable. Maintaining that India has been able to maintain a robust posture along the line of actual control.
Situation is stable and under control, yet unpredictable.
So how unpredictable the red adversary can be? Here's a quick situation report on what China has been up to and why the army leadership has termed the situation unpredictable. Sample this. At the banks of the Pangong Tso in the eastern Ladakh, China has been rapidly increasing its infrastructure. What you see in these satellite pictures is PLA's new division level headquarters, radar station, under construction bridge, along with a new road network. While these structures fall just outside the disengaged standoff zone, they are well within the territory claimed by India. As Galwan Valley, the ground zero of brutal hand-to-hand combat of June 2020, remains stable. Rapid infra push from both sides is visible. Inputs suggest that PLA has provided its combined armed brigades with CSK series high-mobility armoured vehicles. Its tanks have been upgraded with modern fire control system. Towed howitzers replaced with truck-mounted howitzers and deployed the PHLO-3 truck-mounted multiple rocket launchers near the LAC. Following the disengagement from Patrol Point 15, new backward PLA positions can be seen coming up in the general area of Gogra and Hot Springs. Indian position at PP-16 has been moved. Intel suggests that Chinese older surface-to-air missile systems have been replaced with short-range HQ-17 systems, while the deployment of long-range SAM system HQ-9 have been reported near the Chipchap Ridge and Rohtak County. From India's north to the eastern sector, the ever-growing build-up and expansion of road network near the Doklam region as well as near the Nakula border is also evident. Near the 2017 standoff point in Bhutan, China is looking to establish a permanent occupation with new bridges, expanding villages and further land clearance. Apart from expansion of Pangda village in the east, cluster of new villages approximately 20 kilometers north of the India-China-Bhutan tri-junction called Langmarpo are being set up by China in the Bhutanese territory. These areas include Saiburu, Kaitangsha and Kwil.
You hear and what the narrative is, it's a lot of infrastructure happening only on the other side across the LAC. But what does not come to the fore is as to what has happened or what infrastructure has developed on our side.
These images show a large military post about 30 kilometers from India's Nakula. Moving further east to Arunachal Pradesh, the border areas of Tawang has already witnessed failed attempts by the Chinese ground forces to change the status quo. The expansion of dual-use Chinese village north of the Indian positions is under constant upgrade since the Galwan incident. A new wider road leading towards the LAC has also come up recently.
To ensure that they remain a step ahead of the Chinese, the government as well as the military leadership must ensure a robust infrastructure along the border areas as well as state-of-the-art equipments and technology to our troops to ensure that any future attempts to encroach in our territory can be thwarted off effectively. With Abhishek Bhalla and camera person Pavan Kumar, I'm Akshay Dongre for India Today.
And joining me live to decode what the Indian Army Chief meant by stable but unpredictable, and given everything we know so far from the public domain and from our sources reporting from Ladakh, the only channel reporting at this time from eastern Ladakh, I'm joined by none other than Colonel S. Dinny. He's a former commanding officer of an infantry battalion that was deployed on the Pangong Tso sector at a time when this standoff was just brewing. Also with me, always a privilege to have Lieutenant General Sanjay Kulkarni, Veer Chakra. hero of Siachen, the first officer to land in Siachen as part of Operation Meghdut. He's also been Chief of Staff of the 14 Corps, and therefore both of these officers know more than a thing or two about being eyeball to eyeball with the Chinese and how they operate. Welcome to the both of you. Thank you very much for being with us. General Kulkarni, I will come to you first, sir. Stable but unpredictable. It seems a very general thing to say, but the more I think about it, it is also very specific and captures so beautifully this situation, because we have to admit, sir, that this is the third winter since the standoff began. There is no active fighting or shooting or, war-like situation happening. But the more the time passes, the more this is becoming the new normal and the new status quo. And that is perhaps what the army chief meant by stable. But he also said it's unpredictable because this is China that we are dealing with, sir.
Thank you, Shiv. I think absolutely right. The chief summed it up very well, because it is this unpredictability which is challenging, and it is that what we have to manage it. The Chinese aren't 9 feet tall. We know exactly what is happening there. If their infrastructures come up, so has ours also come up. That's not there. It's almost a mirror deployment there, definitely. But this unpredictability, because you can't trust the Chinese. They don't walk the talk. But despite all that, we still have to do jaw and no war, because obviously, preparation prevents a war. And therefore, much that it may be stable, much that it may be looking normal, but you saw what happened at near Tawang.
Yeah.
So that kind of a thing, the Chinese unpredictability. And China, with Chinese, you have to be dealing with them from a position of strength. That is very, very essential. And that is slowly and steadily, we find that we are gaining. And the Chinese seem to be realizing that. They know what we have heard the chief say, the kind of habitats which have come up for almost 55,000 troops he mentioned, for the tanks, for the guns, all kinds of things that have come up over there. That is indicative. And as you rightly said, the third winter. And if this is the way we're going to be facing eyeball to eyeball, obviously, the Chinese know. And the purpose, we have to really understand the Chinese. To understand Chinese, the culture, the language, the kind of mindset, it's very, very difficult.
Yeah.
Because Chinese are what they are. And at this point of time, China firmly believes that India must not rise. It is the rise of India is that what is they have to prevent. So it is not necessarily for a war, a skirmish maybe. This kind of a, dealing and having this kind of a situations which are almost like mob mentality that is cropped up among the Chinese, which we need to control. And that is where we really need to be about. And that is why he says unpredictable, because you really don't know what's going to happen.
Because,
so
because on both sides of the line of actual control, Colonel Dini, there have been infrastructural developments, whether it is, bases being beefed up, reinforcements, accommodations, bridges, one gets a sense of alarm, because the media tends to focus on the infrastructure on the Chinese side. But obviously there is it's not like the Indian side is sitting pretty and, sitting on its hands. We are also building our roads. We are also building our bases. We know a thing or two about fighting the Chinese as well. So what would be happening on the ground? The Indian public wants to know, Colonel Dini, right now, what would be happening on the ground in those frontline areas? Because the army chief today said 5 out of the 7 outstanding issues have been resolved. There are 2 left. Depsang is obviously one of them. So what would it be like for soldiers and officers on the ground there right now?
Shiv, this question of yours, I would link it with what the army chief said today, that the situation is stable, under control, but yet unpredictable. And that is exactly what is happening on ground also. Now, General Kulkarni mentioned about the Chinese motives, which actually is one of the main reasons why things are unpredictable, because nobody knows what is there in their minds. Like if whatever actions they have done for the last 2 years and now close to 3 years, there is nothing which is concrete takeaways as far as for them is concerned. You can keep the narrative of the disinformation campaign to one side, but on ground, what have they achieved? Not much. Now, second point, what has changed, Shiv, is the rules of engagement have changed.
Yeah.
Now, whatever earlier the peace and tranquility agreements were there, that actually today does not hold.
Yeah.
So there's a lot of ambiguity, how to engage with Chinese, and similarly Chinese, how do they engage with the Indians? So that ambiguity is there as far as rules of engagement is there. Now what that does is, Shiv, that when the troops are in close proximity, there is a kind of confusion which is likely to happen. And we all know that troops in close contact or close proximity derive a logic of their own, which can be far away from whatever the strategic guidance which the higher leadership gives. And especially, as you mentioned, for 3 winters, they are there. Although physically, the troops have disengaged, but there are chances of them coming closer and for patrolling, and what we saw in the Tawang sector. So such things can again happen. So that kind of the trust level is so low. Add to the ambiguity because of lack of rules of engagement which is there, there is this constant unpredictable factor that how is the other person going to behave to me? What am I supposed to do? These kind of things will be there on ground, and that is why I think the chief has mentioned that things are under control, stable, but it is unpredictable, because and on the ground you never know how the people will react, how the troops will react, how the Chinese will react, and what kind of reaction the Indian troops will give.
And that's a very troubling thing that you're saying, and you obviously speak from experience. And General Kulkarni, the more time is spent there in this standoff, the unpredictability factor obviously rises, because that ambiguity is going to be dangerous on both sides. My question is, sir, because the Chinese army, the Indian army, are holding their ground. Nobody is moving back at this point of time. Is there 2 small questions? One, is there a possibility of this unpredictability actually manifesting in some kind of, real face-off or standoff, actual fighting in Ladakh sector? Not talking about the Northeast, talking specifically about Ladakh. And 2, is it a situation where the military is hoping for a political resolution, because these are the 2 world's largest armies? There can't be a military settlement to what's going on there.
Shiv, Dini is commander at Pangang, so he knows how unpredictable it can be.
Yeah.
And having said that, this ambiguity is something which is very, very dangerous. You can control your troops to a large extent. You can give them orders. You can do what it is. But at that point of time, you are not without weapons. Everything, like I said, the rules of engagement have changed. They're all there with weapons on and anything and everything. I'm just saying by mistake, just by mistake. Not a shot has been fired, but somebody just counts off heart attack. Let's say it counts off a heart attack. The confusion that will take place and the subsequent actions that can happen. Oh, I can tell you it will be catastrophic. Nobody will be able to manage it, because then the situation has gone out of hand. So this kind of ambiguity, what is the solution? It's a political solution, not a military solution.
Yeah.
Military solution, well, if there's a war, we can take on. If this kind of situation that are coming up, we can handle it, we can manage it. But as I said, something so ambiguous, this ambiguity has to have a limit. And if it crosses and you don't know what's going to happen, I can see that it can be a very, very dangerous situation. We'll not know how to manage it. And then once it goes out of hand, then we'll only have casualties on both sides, and large numbers that would be.
Yeah.
So therefore, it is very essential for a political solution, and most of it rests in China, because it is the Chinese who have started it. And they are the ones who have actually come. 38,000 square kilometers in eastern Ladakh is occupied by them. So they are inside my house. And once they're inside my house, if it is the other way around, if it's in South China Sea, what happens there, the Chinese seem to be saying, well, whatever happens outside a bedroom, we do not entertain. Here, he's inside my house.
Yeah.
He's occupied 38,000 square kilometers. And therefore, we have got to be very careful. Our troops are fantastic. Our leadership is fantastic, unbelievable. That is why so much of it is there under control. But wow, there's a limit. After all, there's a limit to the kind of patience. There's a limit, as I said, no shot fired. Some untoward incident takes place, and some man just loses its temper.
No, absolutely. I completely agree with you. And I think this is very important, Colonel Dini, to convey to the public as well, that even though it's been, 3 winters into this standoff, a very important lesson has been sent to China, has it not? That they can't be doing, whatever they want to. Many of their objectives have not been met. They've run into a wall called the Indian army. I'm not chest thumping. This is a warlike situation. I don't want to romanticize and sentimentalize it. But the fact is, as a professional army, the Indian army has stood its ground, and they have not allowed the Chinese army to meet most, if not all, of its objectives in Ladakh.
Absolutely, Shiv. With due regards to the Chinese army, I would like to, place on record that they call us unpredictable.
Yeah.
Because they call us unpredictable
Which
because
is good.
there are things which we do, which they can't fathom. That how do we do such things and why do we do such things? That is also true. Like what the chief was mentioning, that it's the only story which comes is what the kind of infrastructure which they build. Nothing comes what we do. Similarly, the kind of operations which we do naturally will not come out. So therefore, let us be very clear, Shiv, that the Chinese also would be same discussion would be going on that how unpredictable the Indians are, like what we did in the Kailash range.
Yeah,
And
absolutely.
similar things at the ground level, at the tactical level also. There are ways and means of countering whatever Chinese does. And what last point which I would definitely say is that, at this point as we speak, although there are tensions which can manifest at the ground level when the troops beat, but at the highest level, there is adequate amount of troops on both sides. So the escalation has taken place to such a level. Now, I think only a de-escalation can take place from here. So before a conflict can, like what Jan Kulkarni was mentioning, an inadvertent conflict starting because of some nobody meant it. Like even the Galwan incident, I sincerely believe that Chinese did not mean it or did not plan it the way it happened. So similarly, before something untoward happens, a political decision, something like what happened in Wuhan, would be very good, so that even this kind of buffer zone wherein the troops are not coming in close contact is a good thing. Good thing to maintain peace at that area. So similarly, a political decision has to be there so that further, as much as possible, less and less physical contact of troops take place at the ground level.
War is not an option. It has to be a political resolution to this standoff. India and China are very, very different countries in how they operate. One country is a dictatorship where the military is completely controlled there. Here in India, we're a democracy. And if a war takes place, there will be mass casualties on both sides. Both countries know it. And that's the reason why China has also learned many lessons, like Colonel Denny and General Kulkarni just said. So this is not a situation that is one-sided by any means. I don't want anyone to go away from this special broadcast thinking that India is at a disadvantage. Not in the least. As Colonel Denny said, India is labeled as unpredictable by the Chinese side as well. So this is a two-way street, but it requires a resolution. Thank you very much, General Kulkarni and Colonel Denny, for throwing light on an important and unfolding issues. 3 winters down. Let's hope it's the last one. Thanks for watching this special broadcast. Coming up next, it's Business Today with Ava Bakaya.
It's 2023, and India remains the sole shining star in the global economy. So what lies ahead as the Modi government prepares its last full budget before the 2024 general elections? Join the biggest names in business journalism, decoding the jargon with the biggest newsmakers. From the most credible, in-depth analysis of Budget 2023, tune in for Modinomics 2023 through the month. Only on India Today and Business Today Television, Gold Standard Journalism.
PSU banking space will do reasonably okay. It will not do as well as what we've seen in the last year. But I think we should stay focused on to SBI, BOB, Can Bank. I don't think we should go too far in terms of the smaller PSU banks, because that is where when the market is tough, the performance may not be that good. But overall, we have a positive view on these 3 names which I have outlined.
Okay, and what about your take on the entire auto space, especially with this, auto show now underway? We are seeing some already, some footages coming in as far as the Maruti Suzuki's EV goes, and that's the first one from their basket, slated to release on 2025 as well. Your entire take on that auto space and on Tata Motors especially, because yesterday we saw a spectacular move there on the JLR sales being quite strong, wholesale sales being better, brokerage houses being positive. And which is your top pick, say for example, from the four-wheeler space, especially when it comes to the auto basket?
Yeah, so overall view on auto is very positive. I think we have to select the right pocket. So the passenger vehicle would be one category where the view is very positive. Also, the CV, players, we have a positive view. Two-wheelers is something that we are avoiding at this point because there is not much of clarity. And talking about the stocks, I think definitely Tata Motors would be one stock that we would like to go with at this point, mainly because of the combination of positive news flow on the JLR side. Even the domestic PV cycle is turning positive. CV cycle is reasonably good. So the stock has underperformed. So there is some room for upside over there. And as far as other companies in the auto sector are concerned, we would bet on two names. One is Mahindra, the other one is Maruti, because of the kind of product pipeline that they have and the response which they are getting.
Hello and welcome. You're with us here on Business Today. I'm Abha Bakaya. Here are the day's top stories. Maruti hogs the limelight at Auto Expo with two big launches. Drives in with the Jimny mini SUV and the Fronx crossover. Makes it clear it wants to claw back market share it has lost in the past couple of years. Business Today TV brings you power conversations from the Auto Expo. Stand by for exclusive chats with the country's three biggest automakers in the next 30 minutes. Tata Motors turns showstopper at the Auto Expo with its huge range of new vehicles, continues with its early bird push in the electric space, also reveals two new turbo petrol engines to power its future range. Stock indices end lower for the third consecutive session. Sensex falls 147 points, Nifty down 38 points ahead of the release of inflation data in India and the US. Reliance and BFSI stocks drag markets. Double delight on the macro front. India's consumer price inflation for the month of December eases to 5.72% versus 5.88% in the previous month, while industrial output jumps to 7.1%. Day 2 at the Auto Expo brought the much-anticipated launches of two SUVs by Maruti, signaling how serious the market leader is in its efforts to claw back market share. There were other highlights as well. Maruti lifted the covers off its brand new crossover, the Fronx. The mini SUV is based on the Baleno hatchback, but shares its looks with the recently launched Grand Vitara. Bookings for the Fronx have begun for 11,000 rupees and the car could be priced at around 8 lakh rupees. It will go on sale this April from the Maruti Nexa outlets. The car will be powered by Maruti's 1-litre turbo petrol engine, making 100 bhp. Maruti also displayed its long-awaited mini SUV Jimny at the Auto Expo. The 5-door car, specially developed for the Indian market, had its global debut this morning. The 4-wheel drive model will have a 1500cc engine and is likely to be on sale later this year. According to sources, the bookings will begin in May and it first started selling in 1970. Suzuki prides itself on the vehicle's off-road ability and dependability. Toyota is leading its charge at the Auto Expo with its global flagship, the Land Cruiser. On display at the show is the LC300 with an option of two powertrains, petrol and diesel, both in V6 avatars. There is, however, no word yet on the massive vehicle's launch date in India. The Land Cruiser apparently has a waiting period of years in the global market. Among the only frontline luxury brands to participate, Lexus is readying the Indian buyer for its RX SUV range. The RX will be available in two trims, the RX 350h and the 500h Sport models. Both will be powered by turbo petrol engines with strong hybrid options. Price details have not been released, but the vehicle will rival the Mercedes GLE, the BMW X5, Audi Q7 and Land Rover Discovery. MG Motors took a step into the future with its unique 7 and MPV powered by hydrogen fuel cell technology. The vehicle is much larger in size than the Toyota Innova and even the Kia Carnival. It gets a 6.4 kilogram hydrogen cylinder, which gives it a range of 605 kilometers. It emits water from its exhaust, and the vehicle is only meant to be a technology demonstrator for now. Aiming for the #1 spot in the SUV market, says Maruti MD and CEO Hisashi Takeuchi in a conversation with BTTV's Chetan Bhutani. He hails the purchasing power of the Indian consumer, says it's incremental in nature as we move ahead. With 2 new launches in the SUV space, how is the company placed here on? Listen in.
The SUV space is the fast-growing market in India. And this SUV is now over 40% of the total market is SUV. So, and out of that, the 4.3 meter length, this is one big segment. And another big segment in SUV space is the sub 4 meter segment. And today, we are introducing the important two new products to this sub 4 meter segment. And in order to grasp a very big chunk of the market share in this sub 4 meter segment SUV space.
So when would these 2 vehicles, especially the Jimny and the Fronx, would be available to the consumers in India? What pricing are you trying to put in? I know prices will not be revealed, I agree. But yes, would it be approachable to the consumers in a very healthy manner, sir?
Yeah, of course, we have to make it affordable for the Indian consumer. But at the same time, we don't underestimate the consumer purchasing power. The Indian consumer, the purchasing power is increasing year by year. So I'm sure that those 2 new products will be, accessible by the Indian consumers.
Right. Sir, from 16% market share in the SUV segment right now, you plan to achieve how much segment, how much percentage, and how much time, sir? Have you planned with these 2 new SUVs, sir?
I don't tell the exact numbers, but what I'm going to tell you that in the financial year 23-24, we are aiming to get #1 position in SUV space overall.
That's a great initiative and a very nice step that the Maruti company is taking. So tell us about these 2 products. Where will they be manufactured, and how much investment would the company put in to ensure that a seamless delivery of vehicles happens, sir?
Okay, so this Jimny products will come out from our Gurgaon plant, and Fronx will be produced in Gujarat. Okay. And those new products we had a decent investment. That exact amount I don't tell you right now, but we have very big investment to make production to start in the coming spring season.
Right. So the company is also facing a huge backlog of vehicles, huge waiting time, and the consumers are very patiently waiting for the deliveries. By when do you think would you be able to give that good news to consumers, and subsequently they will be able to have deliveries of their vehicles, sir?
I feel very sorry for those loyal Maruti Suzuki consumers to wait the arrival of the cars. What I can tell you now is this backlog was created mainly because of the shortage of electronic components, and the situation surrounding semiconductor is getting better and better month by month, and starting from 4th quarter the supply situation will be much better.
Tata Motors has meanwhile emerged as one of the anchors of the Auto Expo, with a large number of big brands skipping the event. Stall number 14 is one of the big draws. Let's take a look at what the company has in store at the Auto Expo. Tata Sierra is undoubtedly the company's showstopper at the show. Returning after an absence of 20 years, the Sierra shown at the Expo is a near production-ready variant. While the vehicle is slated to get an electric engine, it may also return with a 1.5-litre turbo petrol engine. The Sierra is likely to be launched in 2025. The Avinya concept created waves last year when it was unveiled via social media. The Auto Expo saw the car displayed in flesh for the first time. Based on Tata's Gen 3 EV architecture, the car is set for a market entry in 2025. Tata Motors puts the car range at over 500 kilometers with a 30-minute fast charging facility. The feature which stands out the most is the front light bar, which forms the brand's logo with a T-shape. Another Tata product expected with a pure electric powertrain is the Curve. The SUV coupe concept broke cover last year. The car will also be offered with a turbo petrol engine and is expected to go on sale sometime next year. The EV variant will have a range of 450 kilometers. On the inside, the Curve gets a 3-layer dashboard, multiple screens and angular design elements. Auto Expo also saw the electric variant of the Tata Harrier being revealed. The vehicle has some fresh visual elements with Tata EV cues, giving the 4-year-old vehicle a much-desired upgrade. The EV version, expected next year, will be a Gen 2 car with the option of 2 electric motors, making it the first time the Harrier is offered with 4-wheel drive. A new 1.5-litre turbo petrol is also expected. Also on display, the sports version of the Tata Altroz, the Racer. The concept gets the Nexon's turbo petrol engine, churning out 120 bhp power. This puts the car in the category of the Hyundai i20 N line. The Racer also gets a new digital instrument cluster and a sunroof. There's currently no launch timeline for the car, with the company waiting to gauge the response at the Auto Expo. With a packed lineup of 12 launches at this year's Auto Expo, Tata Motors takes up the showstopper spot. Broad-based theme continuing to be moving India forward with safer, smarter and greener vehicles. That's according to Shailesh Chandra, President of the Passenger Vehicles Unit at Tata Motors. Listen in.
This year we are showcasing 12 products, and this is on the theme of moving India forward through safer, smarter and greener vehicles. We have also announced our aim of attaining net carbon zero by 2040. So that's broadly the theme around which you are seeing the products here. In ICE as well as EVs. In ICE side, we are disrupting the market in the CNG space by first time bringing in the industry the twin cylinder concept, which takes away the compromise that CNG customers were facing on, the boot. There was used to be no boot space. Now this completely releases the boot space. So you have this kind of product. We are expanding the engine portfolio as we are expanding the portfolio on the ICE. So that is also on display. On EVs, we have displayed 3 cars. One is the the Avinya, which is the Generation 3 product. It's the first pure EV product that we are going to have, in the sense that it will only be EV, not an ICE. We are also showcasing Harrier EV today, which is slated to be launched in 2024. And that's a very popular vehicle in any case in ICE, and people are just loving the concept of EV with a slightly different look also, so it is being appreciated. Sierra has been an iconic brand, and it was, I would say, in early 90s it was ahead of its time. Possibly the time is now, where people, some customers will have nostalgia to that name, but the young buyers will go by the merit of the product. It's very clutter-breaking product, very strong SUV stance. It is a product which will be in its segment, providing great, sense of spaciousness, real as well as perceived, because Sierra, the biggest strength is the glass, more glass inside the cabin, and therefore the overall visibility looks good. So Sierra is being brought because of the iconic, equity that it has. At the same time, it is at the right time, because 4.3, 4.4 meter cars are, the rage of what we see today. So it fits well. So these are the showcases, that you see today. It is on our commitment that in the next 5 years, we are bringing 10 EVs, and want to attain about 25% penetration in the next 5 years is the ambition. I missed one product, which is the Curve, which you see behind us. I should talk about it because this is something which we had displayed in April 2022 in its EV form. This is the ICE form of the same, and this also we want to launch in 2024. So all the products that you are seeing are not concepts. These are real cars going to come in the next 2 to 3 years.
Well, moving on, Hyundai had a star-studded launch with their oldest employee and our very own Shah Rukh Khan launching their brand new Iconic 5. Embarking on the same EV journey as many others, Hyundai CEO Tarun Garg believes the Iconic is not just a car, it's a living room in itself. Here's a slice from that conversation.
I believe that Ioniq 5 reflects the changing India, the transformation which is happening in the auto industry, and I believe it will play a huge role in this transformation towards electric vehicles and towards cleaner vehicles going forward. The car is very special. Not only it has won so many awards, including the World Car of the Year, but you can see the eGMP platform. It gives so much of interior space, luxury, comfort. The range is about 631 kilometers. The charging is very fast, 18 minutes, 21 minutes. Various different kinds of chargers. The ADAS level 2 safety, So everything has been taken care of. And last but not the least is the V2L function, where you can charge so many equipments from the car. I think this is a very unique function. So basically this car is much more than a car. It is a living room in itself, it is an office room in itself, and you can do so many things in this car.
Sir, give me a strategy on how the pricing has been kept. What was the thinking and the rationale behind the pricing? Because luxury EV makers are quite at ends right now because of the high input cost also, battery manufacturing also. So give us that sense, sir.
Look, frankly speaking, Hyundai has been here in India for more than 26 years now. And our endeavor is always to bring in the latest technologies, global technologies, great designs, great features, and at a price which gives value to the customer. I think the same thing has been done for Ioniq 5 as well. We're very happy to receive such kind of a great response on the pricing, and we believe that, like I said, this will be a big transformation happening, and so many customers will be attracted towards the Ioniq 5 for its beautiful features, for its great design, for its range, and of course for its price as well.
Right. When does it go on sale? Could you give us that numbers, and what numbers initially are you targeting, and how much volume growth would you think this would add to your whole set of portfolio?
So look, frankly speaking, Ioniq 5 is not a volume model as such. So we'll go on sale from February. We have already received some 200 bookings. We have announced the price, which is going to be applicable for 500 bookings. And going forward, we will be meeting the customer demand as and when it comes. I think the response is fabulous, and as we go along, we will keep on increasing the production, as we get more and more customer bookings.
Even as most car makers continue to build on their EV print, expanding their presence in the ecosystem with a slew of launches, Toyota fills in that emotional gap at the Auto Expo with the theme of thrills and joys of riding together, with as many as 4 launches from the SUV space. Here are the company's Associate Vice President, Atul Sood, in conversation with Chetan Bhutani.
The broad theme of our pavilion basically is mobility for all, the thrill and joy of moving together. So that's a broad theme for the pavilion we have. And if you see our pavilion, what we have done is we have showcased the multi-path technology towards electrification and beyond. So that's what we have done in terms of the fuel cell technology, in terms of the hydrogen technology, the pure BEVs, the plug-in hybrids, and the complete range we have showcased. Also what we have showcased in the technology is the self-charging strong hybrids, which starts with the Hyrider, goes on with the Innova Hi-Cross, and then we have the Camry, the Velfire, and all the products in our range. And also what we have done is we have showcasing the sustainability zone, which means that we're not looking only at greener vehicles or the tailpipe emissions. We're also ensuring the processes we follow in our plant towards ensuring green operations as such. And finally, if you see, very interesting is the emotional zone on the extreme side, which typically shows how we want to provide the thrill and joy to our customers and the experience we give it to them. And we have the complete SUV range, which starts with the Urban Cruiser Hyrider, which is the all-wheel drive. Then we have the Legender, the Fortuner, the LC300, and not to forget, we also have the Toyota Hilux.
Right. Of course, sir. So give us a brief about the Innova Hi-Cross. Has been, of course, receiving great demand. So tell us about the sales and the numbers attached to it. How are the bookings getting received? How the response been on the ground? Those details, sir.
The bookings, Chetan, have been very encouraging. We launched it on the 25th of November, and the deliveries will start towards the end of this month, the customer deliveries, but the response has been overwhelming, and it sort of vindicates, our commitment to our customers in terms of new technology, which is the self-charging strong hybrid. Also, in terms of the QDR, we have always had. So I would say the response extremely encouraging, and we have it in both the self-charging strong hybrid as well as the gasoline grades.
So, sir, Toyota has had a great 2022 year, record number of sales, and almost done a decade. I think you've achieved good numbers. So, give us a sense, how would you be in 2023 and the next 3-4 years, the outlook, any numbers you can attach to that?
What we can definitely say is, last year, as you saw the numbers, we had the best numbers in the last 10 years. And also this year, we feel economy is on a good trajectory. There is good pent-up demand, and also we have very good response to both the Urban Cruiser Hyrider as well as the Innova Hi-Cross, and not to mention even the other models, whether it's the Camry, the Velfire, the Fortuner. Acceptance of the customers has been phenomenally good, and even the Glanza. So we are looking at a very optimistic approach for this year, and our only endeavor is how do we meet the customer expectations and give them the best experience possible.
Right. So what's next, sir? After the Innova Hi-Cross is here, the new products that can be expected in 2023, any new launches in pipelines, to our, of course, the future viewers and the future consumers?
See, we always continue to study the customer requirements, so and we evolve our products and technologies based on the country's energy mix and the customer preferences. So that's what we would like to say as of now, and whenever there is any such thing, we will inform in due course of time.
Let's take a very quick break. When we return, we get you the Infosys earnings, all the highlights there. Do stay tuned.
The IMF sees India as a bright spot in the global economy. The World Bank says that India is in a better position to deal with global headwinds than many other countries. This is because of India's strong macroeconomic fundamentals. OECD has said that India will be among the fastest growing economies in the G20 group this year. According to Morgan Stanley, India is moving towards becoming the world's third largest economy in the next 4 or 5 years. The CEO of McKinsey had said that this is not only India's decade, but India's century. Institutions and credible voices that track the global economy have unprecedented confidence in India. The same optimism is also shared by global investors.
Welcome back. Indian benchmarks closed marginally lower after remaining under pressure throughout the day. Asian markets settled with steady gains, whereas the European markets were trading marginally higher. Sensex down for a third day now. The index was down about 150 odd points, below 60,000. Meanwhile, Nifty slipped more than 30 points to report a third successive loss for the week. Market breadth was also evenly split today, 25 stocks settling in declines. Top gainers were SBI Life, Ultratech Cement, HCL Technologies, Larsen & Toubro and Dr. Reddy's. Meanwhile, some of the top losers today, Divi's Labs, Reliance Industries, BPCL, Axis Bank and Tata Motors. Infosys has reported a 9.5% rise in profits quarter on quarter. The IT bellwether's profit rose to 65.9 billion rupees in the October to December period. Total revenues up around 5% to 383 billion rupees. Infosys has revised its 2022-23 sales growth to 16.5% from 15 to 16% earlier. The company has won deals worth $3.3 billion in the previous quarter. It also added net 1,627 employees in the 3 months ended December. Marico Innovation Foundation launches the first innovation playbook in response to the rising global plastics challenge. The book identifies the challenges created by plastic waste at the macro and commercial levels and outlines the opportunities and recommendations for plastic waste. I caught up with the pioneer of this foundation, Harsh Mariwala, Amit Chandra, Chairperson Governing Council, Marico Innovation, and also Dr. Mashelkar, Governing Council Member and Chairperson Emeritus at Marico Innovation Foundation. Here's an excerpt from that conversation.
We use a lot of plastics. You parachute, Safola. I think the most asked question is, why are you using plastics? I mean, I wish there were alternatives to use plastics because plastics is the cheapest and it's the most convenient packaging material. But I think the plastics after usage, it has to be managed in the right way. And I think that's where the challenge comes in. If it is not managed in the right way, it has a huge impact on the environment. I don't have exact figure of how large, but all I can say is very, very large. It is impacting all of us. It is there in each and every city, town, landfills. So I think this is something which the time has come where all the stakeholders, whether it is the consumers, your own employees, the society, the government, they are all aware that this has to be managed in such a way that it actually reduces its negative impact on the environment.
We are talking about something like 300 million tons of plastics being used. That's huge.
Used, and I read in the report, I think it's single digits or just about, is it 9% or 10% that's actually recycled?
That's correct. That's correct. So very small proportion is recycled. A lot of it ends up in landfills, in the sea, and so on and so forth. So the damage is really enormous. On the other hand, because it is so affordable and it is so widespread, you cannot say no plastic, all right? We have to say how we reduce it, but most importantly, how do we reuse it and recycle it, all right? So it's a combination of reuse, recycle, reimagine, as a matter of fact, is basic huge, and that is where technology plays a role, innovation plays a role, public policy plays a role. In fact, I would say 4 factors will play a role. One is social engagement. Second is technology. Third is economics, because it has to be viable. And finally, public policy. I would put it this way. It's a combination of these that we'll have to work out.
Yeah. So, Ava, let me just add to what Dr. Mashelkar and Harsh said and dimensionalize the problem as well as the opportunity for you. Just the amount of plastics in our landfills in India alone is about 2 million kilotons. And that is growing at a high single-digit rate every year.
But has nothing been done till now to address this? Because that number is mind-boggling.
We have just started making a dent in this, which is why we thought it's so important to come up with this report. But that's a staggering number. To put that in context of commercial value, because sometimes we don't understand volume and we understand value. We consume as a nation about somewhere between 35 and 45 billion dollars of plastic annually. Okay? And that's growing also at, close to high single digit every year. And as Dr. Mashelkar rightly put it, the recycling component of that is only, single digit. So we are barely recycling any amount. Okay? And so this problem is actually compounding. And what this means, just so we can all understand it, the lifetime value of a plastic that goes into the ground is about 10 times the value of the original product. Be it because of environmental concerns, be it because of the landfill management costs, or be it the health concerns that all of us feel sitting in Delhi and doing this interview. I think all of you understand that better than people, for example, in Bombay. So this is a problem that potentially is worth hundreds of billions of dollars, which is why it's very important for us as society, as government, as companies and as consumers to actually address it, and it creates a massive opportunity for entrepreneurs.
So we leave it on the show tonight. Thanks so much for watching.
I would say that we have done a lot of reforms on the direct taxes. The corporate tax have been brought down to 22%, and new manufacturing units that are set up to 24 March will only pay 15% tax. So that's a good, it's stabilized. Maybe some reforms are needed on the personal income tax also, because the tax rates go up from 5% to 30%, and then there are a number of surcharges there, and a lot of exemptions are there. So maybe we need to tinker with some of these provisions. It may give relief to some people and may not give relief to some other people. But yes, there is a need to simplify the tax rates. There is a need to simplify the process of the personal income tax. Now, if they say a relief, I don't know what exactly CII means in terms of relief, because if you look at tax to GDP ratio for our country, we are still very low. And there's a need to have more taxes. But yes, I agree to this front, and I am of a strong view that our taxes should not come from increasing the tax rates, but from expanding the tax base. So our effort should be there. So all these efforts in capital gains tax also, we need to do something on that. If we do all that, I think it will give relief to some people and also ensure simplification of tax rates.
You are watching India Today.
Hello, you're watching India Today and I'm Aishwarya Paliwal. Let's start the show with the headlines. Demolition begins of one of the two hotels that were marked as unsafe in Joshimath. JCBs brought in. Emotional locals leave their homes as more cracks are discovered in nearby towns. Prime Minister Narendra Modi's big youth outreach in Hubli in Karnataka. PM pays tribute to Kannada legends. He says the runway is ready for the young Indians to take off.
For your takeoff.
Aam Aadmi Party asked to pay 163 crore rupees for political ads at the cost of the exchequer from 2016 to 2017. This comes after the LG sent an order to the Delhi's Government Directorate of Information and Publicity. India's capital gets the chills. Cold wave conditions predicted to intensify. Temperatures could drop to as low as -4 degrees Celsius in the entire northern region. India won the second ODI against Sri Lanka by 4 wickets, takes the lead in 3-match series. India chases down 216 in 44th over. News that's just coming in. Sharad Yadav no more. Former JDU chief passes away. That's the news that's just coming in at the moment. Former JDU chief passes away. Sharad Yadav no more. Sharad Yadav was 75 years old. Former JDU chief Sharad Yadav no more. That's the news that's just coming in. Sharad Yadav was 75 years old. He was the former chief of JDU. Yadav was a close aide to Nitish Kumar. Close aide of Nitish Kumar, Sharad Yadav no more. That's the news that's just coming in. Sharad Yadav was 75 years old, a tall figure in Bihar politics. A very close aide to the Chief Minister of Bihar, Nitish Kumar, Sharad Yadav. No more. Those visuals on your screens. He was also the former chief of JDU.
Those visuals of Sharad Yadav and Nitish Kumar. He was a very close aide of the Bihar Chief Minister. The news that's just coming in is of the death of a tall leader in Bihar politics, Sharad Yadav. A very close aide to the Chief Minister of Bihar, Sharad Yadav, no more. He was 75. He was also a former member of the Rajya Sabha. That's the news that's coming in at the moment. A very close aide of the Bihar Chief Minister Nitish Kumar, a tall figure in Bihar politics, someone who had connections with Nitish Kumar. My colleague Rahul Srivastav is now joining me on the phone line. Rahul, a tall figure, not just in Bihar, but across the country. Sharad Yadav, no more. He passed away at the age of 75.
Yes, Sharad Yadav definitely can be called as one of the key players as far as that eternal dream about a third front in Indian politics is beyond the two strong fronts led by the Congress and the BJP, the United Front and the UPA and the NDA. Sharad Yadav represented the forces which came at one time after defeating the Congress in the post-emergency phase and then the rise of the Mandalite in the late 80s and 89 when we saw the rise of Mulayam Singh Yadav in UP, Lalu Prasad Yadav in Bihar. Mr. Yadav, who is mostly seen by people as somebody who active in Bihar politics and then who made his name in Indian politics, but he was originally from Madhya Pradesh, born in Jabalpur, and he migrated onto national politics. And he was one can say as one of the key figures as far as that movement to create a front which did not have the values of the Congress party at one time and was opposed to the BJP. So it was that kind of leadership that Sharad Yadav represented until his last very active political moment when he was a member of the Rajya Sabha on the JDU ticket. And Nitish Kumar, who is famous for his political somersaults, dumped Lalu Prasad Yadav's RJD and the Mahagathbandhan and decided to go with the BJP. It is at that time that Mr. Sharad Yadav, who was part of the JDU, decided that he is not going to have a truck with Nitish Kumar's latest move. So what Mr. Sharad Yadav did, in fact, was there was a Mahagathbandhan rally led by in which Lalu Prasad Yadav and several RJD leaders were there. And Mr. Sharad Yadav, despite being in JDU, which was with the BJP, he attended rally. And JDU moved a motion in the Rajya Sabha against Mr. Sharad Yadav and called it that this is anti-party activity, that deliberately he has moved against a party wish and joined hands with somebody who is not is the rival of the party. And at that time, M. Venkaiah Naidu, the chairman of Rajya Sabha, had ruled in favor of the petition filed by the JDU. And Mr. Sharad Yadav was expelled in 2017 from the Rajya Sabha. And since then, yes, Mr. Sharad Yadav was not keeping well and also was trying to gain a political foothold. But there was a time when Sharad Yadav was one of the key figures as far as the Mandalites and the Yadav politicians of the Cow Belt are concerned. And by actively being opposed to both Mulayam Singh Yadav and Lalu Prasad Yadav, it was perhaps Mr. Sharad Yadav who represented forces which were closer to the socialite formula. Sharad Yadav had a lot of incidents about Sharad Yadav that he used to be called one of the angry young politicians. That so much so that when he was in young politician, he had a dispute in a courtroom and he created a drama because of which he was sentenced. So Sharad Yadav's demise, though he was not very active in politics, though he was not a prominent figure as far as the politics is concerned, but definitely what one can say is that a huge contribution as far as the third front or representing non-BJP non-Congress forces in the country is concerned.
Rahul, what is your take on the kind of person that he was? You have met him a lot of times. You have seen him in the parliament. Some of the anecdotes, if you can share with us, the kind of person he was.
We see very mercurial. Sharad Yadav loved calling spade a spade. And be it journalists, he in fact was one of those who was extremely critical of the manner in which journalists operate. And yes, also his political allies, and that's what sometimes did not go down very well for Sharad Yadav as far as his political style was concerned, that he was a very mercurial man and also a very strong, staunch socialist. In fact, they are born barely 1.5 months before India acquired independence, and he was born in the Hoshangabad district, and he was a graduate, then went on to get a Bachelor of Engineering from Jabalpur Engineering College. What I have, associated with Mr. Sharad Yadav since sometimes in 1989 and at that period, and Sharad Yadav was very strong socialist leader, and he had very strong links with the Madhu Limes and others, and that was the time when leaders were the Mandalites, who were at one time had worked with Jayaprakash Narayan under the post-emergency movement. And these were the politicians who were known for the simple living. And Sharad Yadav was one leader that I think any journalist will remember about him, that there was never a security guard or somebody stopping anybody at the gates of Sharad Yadav. The gates used to remain open and one could walk in. He was known also for one very interesting element, that whatever may be the problem, up till unless the skies are falling, Sharad Yadav loved his food and Sharad Yadav loved his afternoon nap. And there was a very clear signal that it is sometime around 4 o'clock post-nap that he will wake up. And Sharad Yadav had a lot of incidents about the Jayaprakash Narayan movement. When the Jayaprakash Narayan movement took off, the Haldar Kisan symbol came in. And he was elected from Jabalpur in 1974. Then he was elected from Badaयूं Lok Sabha in the year 1989 as a Janata Dal member. Then he started contesting from Madhepura Lok Sabha constituency in Bihar. So you can see the span of his politics from Madhya Pradesh to UP to Bihar.
Right.
He won the Madhepura seat, in fact, 4 times, 91, 96, 99, 2009. And equal number of times he was defeated. In fact, it was Lalu Prasad Yadav who defeated him in 1998 and 2004 elections, and later by Pappu Yadav of the RJD in 2014. But yes, definitely one problem with Mr. Sharad Yadav had was that he did not have that kind of a mass base, which the other Mandalites like Lalu Yadav and Mr. Mulayam Singh Yadav had in Uttar Pradesh. And that is why he had a sense of dependence on larger political forces. That means that when JP movement came in, he depended on that movement. Then when the element of VP Singh, Mulayam, Lalu came in, he depended on those leaders. Then when the United Front, post-96 came in, and at that time, Deve Gowda and Mr. I.K. Gujral became Prime Ministers. He was a minister in the government. And at that time, he was dependent again on a different set of political leaders. And that is why, though he was, he never sided with the BJP rarely because he didn't agree with it. But yes, because of JDU being part of the BJP, NDA, JDU being part of the NDA, the fact remained that he had very close ties with the left party, the DMK. So he represented that breed of politicians who were not with the Congress, not with the BJP, but had very strong ties, that in case need be, if there was something to be a third front against the BJP and the Congress, then Sharad Yadav always was considered as a dominant player.
Well, Rahul, you have spoken at length about the kind of person he was. Also, do you believe the kind of leader he was, a different breed altogether?
Yes, there was something very old world about him. Remember that all the leaders who came out of the JP movement, Sharad Yadav was one of the leaders who came out of the movement, and these leaders
their politics was different. Remember, it was born out of some very strong anti-Congresses because of the emergency, that all these had what one can say not very strong leaning towards the Congress party. But it was sometime in the 90s when cataclysmic events took place. In fact, there is very interesting element was that in 1991 when Mr. Narasimha Rao became Prime Minister, at that time there was a crisis. The crisis was that the numbers were short, and Narasimha Rao was trying to find place in his own party and also in the polity in the country. And at that time, in the Hawala scandal and several other scandals, several leaders were implicated, and there were cases registered against them. And Sharad Yadav was one of those people against whom a case was registered in the Jain Diary Hawala case. And interestingly, Sharad Yadav was the person who was one of the only few who admitted that political donations do come, and Mr. Sharad Yadav was in a bit of a trouble over that. But the fact remained that he remained a very simple politician to deal with. In terms, no perks, no security hang-ups, extremely open to people. If the Babri demolition created a kind of a fissure in Indian politics, where BJP became a political untouchable and forces were against the Congress also, so there was a very acute political position that leaders like Sharad Yadav used to serve, that they represented the third front, alternative for the country, both in terms against BJP or the Congress party. And that alternative, if you look at it, hasn't died. In terms of the political minds in the country, that idea of a quintessential third front is still there. It may be buried. You know, you have seen Mamata Banerjee try to do it, TRS trying to do it. Recently, we found in Nitish Kumar, after becoming Chief Minister with the support of the RJD returning to Mahagathbandhan, talking about a loosely knit front which possibly he can lead against the BJP and Narendra Modi. Again, that is the front which everybody is talking about, in which the Congress is trying to now position itself. No, we are the main principal opposition. Rahul Gandhi's Yatra is out to position the Congress as that. I think Sharad Yadav was an important milestone as far as the third alternative, political alternative in the country is concerned.
Rahul, however, we did see after 2004, the stars were not shining bright for him. So definitely the politics changed for him as well as for other leaders like him.
The problem for people like Sharad Yadav, as I said, that they were not mass leaders. They were not exactly the same mass leaders as a Lalu Yadav or a Mulayam Singh Yadav are concerned. The changing politics was changing a lot of things. You see, because the rise of the BJP has meant that a lot of other forces, which are alternate forces in political forces in the country, are searching for relevance. You have got Akhilesh, Mulayam Singh Yadav is no more. Akhilesh Yadav is hunting for a political space, how to create a revival, because BJP has successfully created a new formula of Mandal and blended it with Kamandal. And that is why the BJP has been very successful. In fact, the space for the third front, or the hope for the third front, lay in somebody like Nitish Kumar, for example. But Nitish Kumar is a man of political somersault. So Nitish Kumar, when he switches side, he puts the entire political equations of a third front in jeopardy, primarily because Bihar is one state where no party has a clear majority. Lalu Yadav's party needs Nitish Kumar. Nitish Kumar is needed by the BJP. So in that scenario, a lot of alternative political equations go for a toss when there is a somersault by Nitish Kumar. And that is why it is increasingly becoming difficult for the opposition in the current scenario, with the kind of dominance the BJP has and the weakness of the Congress, that there is so much of splintering now that there are not many forces which are there to bring political leaders together. Sharad Yadav kind of leaders were not though mass leaders, but they were great negotiators. They were thinkers. There was an Harkishan Singh Surjit say in CPM. Though Jyoti Basu was in power, but to negotiate at the national, there was a Harkishan Singh Surjit. There is Sharad Yadav. There were leaders who were not mass leaders, but they were thinkers who could create a political equation in the country. Today, you have very ambitious Mamata Banerjee, you have TRS. All these leaders think that they themselves have right to be the leader of the pack. So there are very few leaders who can bring together those kind of leaders. We had in recent times, we had somebody like Prashant Kishore who was talking about a front which can be created. But even that has petered off. So Sharad Yadav's significance remains, a politician of this kind remains, the fact that they are leaders who understand the pulse of politics in India. They are equidistant from the two main forces, and if there is need to come together, they perhaps are great negotiators to bring forces together.
Rahul, do you think his equation with the Bharatiya Janata Party also changed? From 1999 till 2004, in the Atal Bihari Vajpayee government, there were many portfolios he had held. Later on, do you think the relationship with the leaders of the Bharatiya Janata Party, the party, all those things also started to dwindle?
See, the problem is that Atal Bihari Vajpayee was the difference. Atal Bihari Vajpayee was the difference, I say it primarily because of the fact that at one time in 2004, when he was re-elected to the 13th Lok Sabha, I think for his 6th term from Madhepura, at that time he defeated Lalu Prasad Yadav. And he became the cabinet minister for civil aviation. Then he was a very good union minister for labor because he had been part of labor movements and part of the socialist movement. So he was considered as one of the good labor ministers. Then he even had the minister for consumer affairs and food and public distribution. The fact is that he could survive in the council of ministers of Atal Bihari Vajpayee because Atal Bihari Vajpayee was seen as the softer face of Hindutva. Atal Bihari Vajpayee was managing and running a very unwieldy but still a 24-party coalition where political colors of several kinds were present. So a Sharad Yadav could always go out and say that I am part of a coalition which is keeping the RSS at bay, which is not purely led by somebody like an L.K. Advani or somebody who is very strident Hindutva. It is that foil, that cover, that fig leaf that was provided by Atal Bihari Vajpayee to a lot of politicians, even say Farooq Abdullah, for example, that they could be part of that council of ministers. But then came the UPA, and after that came when he came to the Rajya Sabha and all, the problem became that he could not agree with the BJP under Narendra Modi, and that became the defining line for him. That eventually, when Nitish Kumar, he was part of the Mahagathbandhan with Nitish Kumar with the JDU, but since JDU had walked out against Narendra Modi, so much so that I remember there was a big BJP meet in Patna where Nitish Kumar was supposed to host a dinner for the entire BJP top brass which was there. And at that time, some posters of Narendra Modi and Nitish Kumar appeared when they were together in a Ludhiana rally of NDA. And at that time, Nitish Kumar was positioning himself as a secular face. Nitish Kumar cancelled the dinner. And that was the kind of acrimony between Nitish Kumar and Narendra Modi. And suddenly, when Nitish Kumar went back with the BJP, it was Sharad Yadav did not agree with it. And then he attended a political meeting called by RJD, Mahagathbandhan, and then eventually he was expelled from the Rajya Sabha. And the cause was Nitish Kumar saying that by joining RJD public meeting, he has defied the anti-defection law and has indulged in anti-party activities. It is political irony that it was Sharad Yadav who was expelled for attending one political rally, and today the same Nitish Kumar is sitting in government with Tejasvi Yadav and Lalu Yadav.
Well, definitely, it completely was a big seesaw. So it actually was Nitish Kumar who had helped him get the Rajya Sabha, and then, as you said, that it was Nitish Kumar who then got angry and then got him expelled from the upper house. So definitely, we did see that it was a complete seesaw. Relationships, soaring from being very good to coming to a point where he was then expelled.
Yes, I think, Sharad Yadav floated his own party also. It was sometime in July 2018, I think. He had formed a separate political party, and then after that his membership was cancelled. He was stating always that the LJD that he had formed, Loktantrik Janata Dal, that he was going to be part of a grand anti-BJP alliance in Lok Sabha polls and others. He was eyeing votes in, he held rallies in several parts of the country. He went to Jaipur and several other places. But somehow, Sharad Yadav was not those kind of mass leaders. I think he was very good as a leader who would sit in the back room, and he definitely, one thing what could, anybody who knows Sharad Yadav, he could smell the political tea leaves very well. His political judgment was very sharp, and he could predict which political wind was blowing in which direction, and that is why he was one of the critical elements in creating what I've been calling the third political alternative in the country.
Do you also believe, Rahul, he was very keen to revive the UPA? Do you think that was also something which was on his mind? Maybe, floating his own party and then trying to bring together all those people. Do you also think somewhere at the back of his mind, he thought he could maybe revive the UPA?
See, even after he floated his party, I met him a couple of times, and I don't think he had delusions about making political big at that time, because I think he was struggling. He was struggling politically because he knew that he did not have the sustaining force. Remember, politics now is a very cruel space compared to what it was 30 years back. You not only you have very strong political faces. By the time that he formed his party in 2018 and all, there was Narendra Modi.
Just one sec, we have the former Chief Minister of Haryana, Dipendra Singh Hooda, joining us on the phone line. Mr. Hooda, a tall figure, not just for the state of Bihar, but also for the country. Sharad Yadav passing away, do you think it is the end of an era?
Yes, because Sharad Yadav was known to be a thermometer for politics. He was like thermometer. He could have judged what way the wind is blowing and what should be done. He started his politics from student life, and he proved to be very sensible and senior politician of the country. Losing him, you see, is very sad affair. Hello?
Yeah, Mr. Hooda. Hello?
Yes. Losing him is a very sad affair.
Yeah.
So it's a very great loss for the country.
Do you also think, the leaders like him, it was a different breed altogether? Someone who could gel with different kinds of leaders?
Yes. This is what he did by bringing all opposition leaders. He used to talk about bringing all opposition leaders together, and he was a key man in that aspect.
Hooda Sahab, this is Rahul Srivastav. Sharad ji remember that he, like many leaders in the country, were born in the JP movement. And that was a movement against the Congress party. But he made choices. He made choices that he may have at one time been a strong anti-congressman. But then in the last few years, remember that he made it very clear that perhaps Congress was more acceptable to to him and leaders like him compared to the JP. Do you think that's one value which is now getting lesser and lesser?
Because he knew what is the interest of the country. Yes, that's the main. Whatever was in the interest of country, he used to support that. Of course, he was born out of JP movement and student movement, and he was a follower of Charan Singh also, and he was brought up like that. So, starting from ground, from student politics to the national politics, he grew. With all his experiences, losing such a leader is a loss to country.
Hooda Sahab, I remember you spending a lot of time sitting with him sometimes in the Central Hall of Parliament. But you will also recall that at one time,
not only Central Hall,
at one time he lost his Rajya Sabha seat because he attended rally with the JDU, with the RJD, while today the JDU is with the RJD.
Yes, that's right. I have spent a lot of time with him, and I discussed many problems regarding country and the political scenario of the country. He was a very mature man. He was a mature politician, and he was above self-interest. So that was his station. He never thought of his own interest. He thought of country's interest.
Thank you very much, sir, for speaking to us.
Rahul, some of the things that you have been speaking about is the fact how all of these people came together during the JP movement. They were all very young leaders. They all came together, and then the politics of the country took a turn. So do you believe the kind of upbringing these people had, the kind of political movement they were involved in very young in their lives, was also something that became the definition of the kind of leaders they became?
Yes, that's absolutely, perfectly putting it right, that why they became like this. I think a lot of leaders have struggled in the last few years. They all emerged from a political movement. And remember, at that time, the battle was against the tyrannical emergency and the deterioration of the Congress in terms of as a political force, that the very party which had fought for independence, which led the country out of colonial rule, ruled the first government, ushered in the Constitution of India, and kept the Constitution in abeyance. And these leaders were different. Under JP, the man who was at one time part of the freedom struggle also, these leaders had a very different political grounding. At that time, they worked even with the BJP men. I recall Sharad Yadav telling me some very interesting stories that at one time when he used to be in prison under the JP movement, most of the political activists were inside prison. So he said that, do you know that who was the people who were actually taking our word out and spreading pamphlets in the public? He said that it was RSS men, because at that time, the political divide was not so much, and the idea was to use whatever means are there. But the dividing line happened after the Babri demolition. The Babri demolition changed politics so much that the rise of the Mandalites became a reason for also the rise of the Kamandal. That there were leaders like Mulayam Singh Yadav, Kanchiram, Mayawati, Lalu Prasad Yadav, and several others emerging, Nitish Kumar emerging in the country. So you had a very strong, because of the Mandir movement, a very strong movement towards the Kamandal, and the upper caste and others started uniting towards that direction. And in that, Sharad Yadav and others did very well at a time when they took on the Congress, weakened the Congress. Remember that if Congress was dislodged from its grand pedestal at one time, in say 1989, I think is a defining period, it was not the BJP. It was largely the Mandalites. It was the Mandalites and also somebody like a VP Singh and a Devi Lal, Biju Patnaik, and these leaders who created that breakdown for the Congress. And it is later the BJP benefited from it. But it's sad irony that there were two problems with this group. That third alternative, it was too utopian.
Hold on for a second. Look at this Prime Minister Narendra Modi, who has now tweeted about Sharad Yadav. He said the Indian government is pained by the passing away of Shri Sharad Yadav. In his long years in public life, he distinguished himself as an MP and as a minister. He was greatly inspired by Dr. Lohiya's idols. I will always cherish our interactions. Condolences to his family and admirers. Prime Minister Narendra Modi has now tweeted and sent his condolences to the family. Condolences to the family and all his admirers. Preeti Chaudhary, my colleague, is also joining me on the phone line. Preeti, we've also seen the kind of politician Sharad Yadav was. People say, an end of an era. These kind of politicians were a different breed, as Rahul was pointing out, and the kind of upbringing they had, the reasons why they all came together as young leaders, all those things were defining the kind of leaders they all became.
Well, Aishwarya, you are right. I think it is a passing of an era of sorts. He was one of the prominent faces of the JP movement. There's a certain sort of melancholy to this, and I will bring in Rahul Srivastav into this conversation. Rahul, you've covered most of these leaders, and it's just not even 6 months when Mulayam Singh Yadav passing away, now Sharad Yadav. There's like I pointed out, a strange sort of melancholy to this all of it coming down together.
Yes, Preeti, I think you put it very well. Why I agree with that melancholy element, because these people represented the third alternative in the country, the third political alternative. And that space, that platform, that stage is getting very bereft of leaders. Those who were there at one time driving political forces, as I was just telling Aishwarya, that these are the people who drove the Congress out of the Lutyens zone. These are the leaders who created that perfect ground in which the hegemony of one political party was finished forever. If you see that those seeds of rebellion which were sown in those days, today you have 6 to 7 leaders of chief ministers of different states who are born out of the Congress party. They were Congress members, but they took on the Congress, went out and have eaten up the space that used to belong to the Congress party. In the process, of course, the BJP and the right wing has played its own politics. It has been on the ascendant and has been threatening that political space held both by the Congress and also by those who were the third alternative, electoral or political alternative in the country. So you have an Akhilesh Yadav who is struggling. So if you recall, when last somersault by Nitish Kumar and he went back to RJD, Sharad Yadav, who was expelled on complaint of JDU for attending one political meeting called by the Mahagathbandhan by the RJD, by Nitish Kumar, and complained, and he was expelled from the Rajya Sabha by M. Venkaiah Naidu, the chairman of Rajya Sabha at that time. He went back to Patna after virtually 3 years. I recall it was 3 years. He had not been to Patna for 3 years. And the first thing he did after reaching Patna, that he went and met Nitish Kumar. The hug, political hug, which one saw at that time was surprising because just barely 3 years ago, we had seen Sharad Yadav being expelled for attending a rally with RJD, and here was Nitish Kumar floating his political ambition in support of the RJD. And of course, becoming chief minister yet again.
Rahul, I want to, you bring up Nitish Kumar, and today at this time, do you think that somewhere down the line it will be an hour of reckoning for a man like Nitish Kumar as well? Because if you look at, what were now the poster boys of the JP movement, from regional, turning the force from Bihar to a national level, what is left? And, when you talk about Mulayam is gone, Sharad Yadav is gone, Lalu is, physically not keeping too well. Nitish is practically the lone man standing, and correct me if I'm wrong.
Yes, one can say that Nitish, in that band of leaders, is one of the lonely figures. But I think that loneliness is not necessarily his strength. I think that loneliness brings a certain set of problems. Remember, a Tejasvi is not a Lalu. Though he is a very bright leader, he has done very well for himself. His party has done well, emerged as the single largest party in the last assembly elections, abandoned by Nitish Kumar, but came back to power. The fact remains that space, in that space, if there are no people like Sharad Yadav, see, Lalu had a political rivalry with Sharad Yadav because Lalu was a big face. Mulayam would not allow a lot of space to Sharad Yadav, primarily because Sharad Yadav was no mass leader. But Sharad Yadav had a capability to bring people together. It was that political mindset and aptitude that they had, that they can sit in the back room, make people bend over. They could make people talk to them and hear them. They may not be allowed by a lot of space by somebody like in Lalu Yadav, but yes, they had the political standing to go call up Lalu, pick up the phone and tell Lalu that I want to meet you, let's discuss this, and create an agenda which is required for what Nitish Kumar now plans to do in future. That space is now lacking people who are great negotiators and that magnetic appeal about them to bring people together.
Rahul, stay with us. I want to quickly apprise our viewers of what has just happened as the passing away of Sharad Yadav. And his daughter broke that news on Twitter. He had been ailing. He had been in a hospital in Gurugram, admitted there, not been well. The first candidate, there are going to be so many obituaries that most political analysts would be thinking and writing. And I'm going to ask Rahul, and Rahul, I'm going to give you 2 minutes to maybe, mull over for somebody who's followed the entire political career of leaders like Sharad Yadav. Many would say the end of the socialist era had anyway come. It was just now, one by one, the leaders just, taking that final call. But if you had to put it down together, if you had to write an obituary, what would be Sharad Yadav's legacy? What would you say it would be that? The first candidate to win on the then Janata Party's famous Haldar Kisan symbol, Sharad Yadav passing away, handpicked by JP to contest in 1974, won an election at the age of 27. Might have not had the mass appeal of Lalu Mulayam, but a politician to the hilt. And, Rahul, I'll bring you in again on this, because you were talking about how leaders like this actually gave such a huge challenge to the Congress, but ultimately, I would reckon the last few pictures, and I'm actually scrolling, of Sharad Yadav with Rahul Gandhi.
Yes, he supported the Bharat Jodo Yatra. In fact, I think Sharad Yadav was struggling politically. I think remember that all these leaders who were born out of the JP movement, I will say that no, socialism not dead, but definitely I will say that a lot of those leaders who were carrying the flag of socialism, yes, there is today we find that there are very few left around because the strongest of the leaders are not around. Also, I think that very idea, remember that when we talk about all these leaders who are socialist leaders, they are the leaders
Rahul,
created.
Rahul and Preeti, both my colleagues joining me on this broadcast. It's time for us to slip into a very quick break. News that's just come in is Sharad Yadav, a tall leader, passed away. He was in a hospital in Fortis, in Gurgaon, and the news was broken by his daughter.
You are watching India Today.
News is about putting people first. Just look at the queues right across. About asking the right questions to those in power. It takes no sides.
माँ का दर्द एक दर्द कोई नहीं समझ सकता उस दर्द को.
It reveals. It heals. Angry people came out on the streets.
Is this the kind of justice system we want in this country?
News is all heart and no hatred.
बिल्किस बानो आज क्या कहना चाहेंगी आप?
हमारे साथ जो हुआ है किसी के साथ भी नहीं होना चाहिए.
Experience the news. With me, Rajeep Sardesai, only on India Today.
Amazon, the company that delivers packages at your doorstep, could soon be seen delivering you the electricity. In order to trade clean energy in India, Amazon has established a new energy company called AEI New Energy Trading Private Limited that works with Indian energy producing firms. While the US-based company will utilize the energy to power its own operations, there's a chance it may also power your home. The largest corporate consumer of clean energy in the world holds a Category 3 trade license in India. The American company has contracted with private firms to supply it with 720 megawatts of power. Amazon will use this electricity to power its warehouses, cloud services centers, web centers, other operations, and to our homes through local electricity service providers. But why is this billion-dollar behemoth attempting to enter the electricity market when its primary business is thriving? The answer is to target of becoming a carbon-neutral firm by 2040. This would also assist India in achieving its carbon-neutral goal, which was set for 2070. By 2047, the nation also aims to revolutionize power generation through the development of green energy and enhance job growth. So soon, it could be a possibility that our Amazon OTT box is powered by Amazon itself.
Membership 1, खुशियां अनेक.
Bureau Report, Business Today Television.
You are watching India Today.
Hello, you're watching India Today. I'm Aishwarya Paliwal. Now, the news has just come in is that the former Union Minister Sharad Yadav has passed away at the age of 75. The former Union Minister's health was deteriorating and he was admitted to Gurugram's Fortis Hospital. The hospital issued a statement in which it said the veteran Bihar politician was brought to the emergency ward in an unconscious and unresponsive state. He did not have any pulse or recordable blood pressure. Born in 1975, the former Union Minister had an illustrious political career spanning decades. He served as a 10-time Member of Parliament in a span of 50 years. Sharad Yadav held various portfolios in the Atal Bihari Vajpayee government between 1999 to 2004. In 2003, Yadav became the president of the Janata Dal United, the JDU, a party that included his close aide Nitish Kumar. Prime Minister Narendra Modi, Bihar Deputy Chief Minister Tejasvi Yadav, amongst many others, paid tribute to one of Bihar's tallest leaders. Now, the demolition drive of the damaged hotels in Joshimath has already begun. Now, this comes after the residents who were very furious halted the demolition activities in Uttarakhand's sinking town of Joshimath. The residents and the owner of the hotel were in tears during the demolition process. And while the demolition is underway in the state of Uttarakhand, in the national capital, Home Minister Amit Shah chaired a high-level meeting to review the situation in the state of Uttarakhand. Watch this report.
पैरों तले जमीन खिसक रही है is a Hindi proverb often repeated here in Joshimath these days. The phrase that shows helplessness best describes the state of the people in this holy town. The land under their feet is literally sinking. In less than a fortnight, over 80 families have become homeless. Many buildings are marked already dangerous. The demolition exercise started on Thursday after people ended protests. No bulldozers are being used given the delicate nature of the task at hand. Hotel Malari Inn is the first on the list. Owners of the building, marked unsafe, are demanding fair compensation.
मैं यही बोल रहा हूँ ना, मौखिक कुछ भी नहीं है, हमें लिखित डॉक्यूमेंट चाहिए जिसके बेस पे आगे कार्रवाई करे, तभी हो पाएगा आगे. हम तैयार हैं, मतलब डिमोलिशन के लिए, मतलब हमें रिटर्न फॉर्म में चाहिए, बेसिस ऑन द वो बद्रीनाथ में जो फॉर्मूला लगा था उसके बेसिस पे कंपनसेशन के लिए.
Uttarakhand Chief Minister Pushkar Dhami has announced an immediate compensation of 1.5 lakh rupees to the affected families.
1.5 लाख रुपया केवल अभी अंतरिम रूप से जो अभी फौरी तौर पर अभी अपने को थोड़ा शिफ्ट करने के लिए या अपना कोई सामान खरीदना है तो उसके लिए था। बाकी तो अभी पुनर्वास होना है या इसमें सहायता होनी है, उसके लिए जो पहले भी आपदाएं यहाँ पर आई हैं, बड़ी बड़ी आपदाएं आई हैं, उसके समय में जो हमने नियम बनाए हैं या जो जिन नियमों के तहत सहायता राशि प्रदान की गई है उन्हीं में से करेंगे।
The weather in Joshimath is changing fast as the winter gets harsher. Many are making their way to shelters.
1-2 महीने से बिल्कुल स्थिति गंभीर हो गई और भूदशाओं के कारण ये जो मेन ये होटल है इसके कारण हमारे मकानों को बहुत क्षतिपूर्ण हो गया।
बुरी स्थिति है, आप ने देख लिया हो बरामदे वगैरह पूरा मकान में दरार पड़ गई।
मकान तो पूरा खत्म हो गए। हम लोगों ने कहाँ जाना, कहाँ रहना है, बच्चों के लिए कहाँ जाना हम लोगों ने।
It's raining in Joshimath since yesterday and that has changed this scenario for many of the residents like Yamuna Prasad. This particular room that you are seeing was in a way safe for the residents, but when in the morning the occupants of this house came to the house to check the situation, they realized there's a new crack in the pillar itself.
Over 700 houses have shown cracks on the walls. At least 130 families have been shifted out to safety.
2 दिन से बैठक चल रही है, उसके पहले बैठक चल रही है। अभी स्थिति हम क्या देख रहे हैं जोशीमठ में?
अभी एसडीआरएफ और पुलिस फोर्स और एनडीआरएफ की टीम जो जिन घरों में ज्यादा दरारें आई थी, जो घर रहने के लायक नहीं थे, उन घरों से उनको शिफ्टिंग में हेल्प किया जा रहा है और उनको सुरक्षित स्थानों पर ले जा रहे हैं।
Cracks are also being reported from areas like Karnaprayag, Rudraprayag, Paudi and Uttarkashi.
मकान के हालात बिल्कुल खत्म है, चाहे अंदर बोलो बाहर हो, कहीं भी देखो टूटा हुआ मिलेगा आपको।
कई परिवार प्रभावित हैं, घर बार उनको घर में रहना बड़ा मुश्किल हो गया।
State government officials have started inspecting land subsidence threat in other parts of Uttarakhand also. The fear is that the crisis could be bigger than what we imagine. Bureau Report, India Today.
With just months to go for the crucial assembly elections, freebie politics is raging in the state of Karnataka. The Congress has now promised free electricity for up to 200 units in the state. The ruling Bharatiya Janata Party has hit out at Congress's freebie promise. Chief Minister Bommai has called this a sign of Congress desperation.
Billo 000 irtade. Bill will be 0 200 unit.
Politics escalate over freebies in Karnataka. With assembly elections drawing closer in the state, political parties are wooing voters by promising sops. The Congress, for instance, has taken up the Aam Aadmi Party model that took Arvind Kejriwal's party to power in Delhi and Punjab. The grand old party is promising free electricity to all.
So ಮೊದಲು ನಮ್ಮ ಈ ಪ್ರಜಾಧ್ವನಿಯ ಮೊದಲನೆಯ ಗ್ಯಾರಂಟಿ 200 ಯೂನಿಟ್ ಫ್ರೀ ಎಲ್ಲರಿಗೂ ಕೂಡ ಬಿಲ್ಲೆಸ್ ಪ್ರತಿ ತಿಂಗಳು ಬಿಲ್ಲು 000 ಇರ್ತದೆ ಬಿಲ್ ವಿಲ್ ಬಿ 0 200 ಯೂನಿಟ್ ವರೆಗೂ.
Karnataka Congress President D.K. Shivakumar made the promise while launching the bus rally in Belagavi, which kicked off his party's election campaign. Karnataka Chief Minister Basavaraj Bommai has described this act of Congress as a sign of desperation.
It is irresponsible, irrational decisions. They are desperate. That's why they are announcing. Many more such announcements are expected from Congress. That shows how lowest level are there in the electoral race.
Congress is a bankrupt party. They will keep on announcing these kind of things which they can never deliver because they are never going to come to power. So they will promise the moon and honestly try and misguide the people. People of Karnataka are very, very wise. They know which is the party for development, which will actually take care of their interest.
Aam Aadmi Party has hit out at the Congress, calling it copycat.
Yesterday they made an announcement. For many years now they have been laughing at the various schemes of the Aam Aadmi Party, saying that we give everything free. But now they understand that the people are on the side of the Aam Aadmi Party. They are trying to bribe the people by copying the Aam Aadmi Party.
How effective are freebies in winning elections is debatable. Both Congress and Aam Aadmi Party recently lost Gujarat miserably despite offering many sobs. Bureau Report, India Today.
That's all the time we have on India Today. Thank you for watching.
You are watching India Today.
Make your media plan smarter with India Today Live TV on your connected devices. Amplify your brand with 100 million smart internet viewers. To advertise, mail us at sales@aajtak.com.